We be live. Oh, I like what
It's news time, biatches.
All right, guys, we're going to be covering the latest news on atheism, secularism, some politics, maybe some cultural stuff. Susie,
Demographics.
pick demographics. Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly religion related, though. Yeah.
Always religion related, just in many categories.
Yes. I see Music Guy and D in the live chat. Our favorite people are here. Say hi, guys, in the live chat if you're here. And also make sure you like the video. Sus, we're not professional streamers because we don't say that. I see other streamers, they keep saying don't forget to like and subscribe, and we don't say that. We should keep telling people that. Guys, it doesn't
usually
cost
make an effort at the end, but you're right.
No, we should say that at the beginning. Guys, it helps us grow if you actually like these videos. More people will discover us if you like it. It doesn't cost you anything. So just do a like. We're doing this for free for you guys. You get this for free, so you might as well just help us out with a like, right? All right. Should we clap for the first news?
Yes.
First
news. New study finds atheists are more likely to believe that aliens exist. A report titled Preliminary Assessment, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAP, by the Office of the Director of National Defense in the United States, released on June 25th, caused a flurry of debate regarding the existence of aliens. A study by the Pew Research Center, which was sparked in part by the ODND's report, found out that religious adults are more likely to doubt the existence of alien life versus those who are less religious. 77% of those of both the atheist and agnostic participants say that their best guess is that life exists on other planets. Tom Flynn, the editor of the humanist magazine Free Inquiry, posited that religious people are less likely to believe in alien life because it undermines the core of their beliefs.
I mean, this makes complete sense. If I had to guess, this is what I would guess. If you have two groups of people and one of them considering a new a hypothesis, and if that hypothesis would challenge everything they believe, group A would challenge their beliefs if they had to come up with the likelihood of a hypothesis, if they had to accept it, and group B, it wouldn't challenge all their already accepted beliefs. It would be more likely that group B would, on average, attribute a higher possibility to the hypothesis, given that it doesn't challenge certain views that they already hold. Honestly, this is by the way, when I say this is what we would expect, this is not a dismissal of studies, right? This is just so happens that the results are what you would expect, right? You still need studies because a lot of times the results are the opposite of what you expect. Just because you expect a certain result, that doesn't mean that you should not do studies, okay? Because there are many times that you expect something and then the study results come out oh my God, this went exactly the opposite of what is, just so happens here that it went in the direction that we would have expected, I think, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting.
I just want to clarify that I'm not being anti-intellectual by saying this is what we expected, because we still need to do studies. But yeah, go on.
It was really interesting. So they gathered this information in a variety of ways, of determining someone's kind of religiosity, and all of kind of the standard markers of religiosity was an indicator that someone was not likely to believe in the possibilities of intelligent life on another planet. For example, where was it? Shoot. Sorry.
Well, while you're looking for that, I just want to say that what do they mean by alien? Just like life somewhere else?
Is that intelligent life, intelligent extraterrestrial life?
Okay, that's very specific. Because if they were just saying life, that would be like, duh. Like, obviously, like the universe is so big. But also intelligent life. I mean, the universe is so big, it's like, it wouldn't be, again, it wouldn't be, like, this is, the problem is they just, when they say alien, they put pictures like what, like, look at the cover that our editors pick, right? When you pick pictures like this, then it might seem ridiculous to be like, believe in that specific type of alien, right? But does intelligent life exist somewhere in this goddamn universe? It wouldn't be, it's not an extraordinary claim, right? Like, if you have the right conditions, you're going to have life. If you have life, give it enough time, you're probably going to get some intelligence. Well, I don't know. I don't actually know, probably, because I can't. Like, most people are incapable of actually doing the math when it comes to the probability of these things. Like, I know a lot of people smarter than us are doing the math, but most people who come up with conclusions like this, they themselves can't do the math and haven't even looked up the work of the people who have done the math. So they have no business attributing probability to the likelihood of this, right? You could just maybe refer to, I mean, if you have looked at other people who are experts who have tried to do the math, then you could maybe appeal to the experts. But given, if you haven't, then even if you come up with a guess, you have to admit to yourself that this is nothing but a guess, right? You have no idea how probable this is, right? But again, it doesn't seem like an extraordinary, like, some people think like this is really out, like, if anybody believes this is true, this is not like an out there, like, a superstitious belief. If intelligent life happened on this planet, it means that this is something within the realm of possibility for it to happen on a planet somewhere in the universe. And unless there's something magical or supernatural about our planet, then could possibly happen on another planet somewhere in the universe. This is not an extraordinary claim. So I don't think, like, religious people just saying outright, like, oh, I don't believe this is true, because it challenges their belief. Nobody has any business saying that this is not possible, right? It's definitely possible, but how possible, that is a very complicated question, and most people have no idea. Yeah.
So I found what I was looking for. This is evidence, meaning like there are findings that Americans who are religious are less likely to say that there is intelligent life beyond Earth, is evidenced by a variety of measures of religious engagement. For example, any U.S. adults who attend religious services on at least a weekly basis are considerably less likely than those who seldom or never attend services to say that intelligent life exists elsewhere, meaning 44% of frequent attenders or weekly attenders versus 75% of seldom attenders. Similarly, around half of Americans who say religion is very important to them, which is 49% of their sample, say their best guess is that intelligent life exists on other planets, so a minority. By comparison, roughly 3/4 of those who say a religion is less important in their lives, which is 76%, say that intelligent life does exist elsewhere or might exist elsewhere. Adults who pray daily are also less likely than those who seldom or never pray to say intelligent life exists on other planets, which is 54% versus 80%. White evangelical Protestants, who tend to be highly religious, are less likely than any other religious groups to say intelligent life probably exists on other planets. 40% hold this view, so minority of white evangelical Protestants. Most white non-evangelical Protestants, which is 65%, Catholics, 67%, and religiously unaffiliated adults, 80%, say their best guess is that there is intelligent life beyond Earth. And they also noted that due to the limitations of their sample size, they weren't able to gain meaningful or significant findings for Jewish or Muslim Americans. But I thought this was a really interesting breakdown.
Interesting. What do you think, by the way? Your views on this?
I mean, it kind of makes sense, like for all the reasons that other people have posited. I don't know if anyone has studied specifically in a more strenuous and systematic way what could explain these findings. But
no, I meant your views on whether intelligent life exists somewhere.
Well, to quote Ghost Bunny in the live chat, I think it's more probable. I think she says, I believe the possibility of alien life is more more than I do of God. So I think
that's an understatement, but yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so here's another thing I think, okay? I think it's very possible. Again, I'm not going to use the word probable because it's hard to calculate these. Possible is an easier thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's possible for us to find like some sort of life at some point, somewhere. But even if there is intelligent life somewhere in the universe, I think it's very, again, I could be very, very wrong. I'm just guessing, right? So if anybody wants to disagree with me, you're possibly right and I'm wrong, right? But I think if there is intelligent life somewhere in this universe, we're never going to contact them. Okay. I think it's very possible that we're going to find life, like some really basic form of life on some planet somewhere. But I mean, the nearest star to us is like, how far is the nearest star? How many 4 light years away?
You mean besides our sun?
Yeah, the nearest star, other than ours. The nearest star to us is 8 minutes. 8 minute
light minutes or whatever.
8 light minutes away. Okay, after our sun, the next one is 4 light years away. Right, so 4 light years away. Yeah. That means that if there is intelligence, so if there is life that we could contact, it's either in our solar system, it's either in this close to this star that we have, or which we would have probably found by now if there is if it was intelligent. So it's not. So if we're going to find life anywhere around in our neighborhood, it's going to be not intelligent. If there is intelligent life anywhere else, that means that it's the next closest one is 4 light years away. And 4 light years away is far enough for us never to be able to reach each other unless we have godlike powers. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, you can't travel in, I don't know. Like, it has to be, I don't think we're ever going to, like, it either has to be in the closest, solar system next to us, which is 4 light years away. And if it's not in that one, then it's definitely so far. No, well, I shouldn't say definitely. Then it's so far away that unless the intelligent life has some godlike powers that I don't know how they managed to achieve, like somehow they broke every law of physics and math or anything, then we're going to be forever separate and we're never going to ever reach each other, right? So that's, I don't know. No, I don't know. Maybe even if we find each other because we somehow send messages into the void, even if we find each other through messages, we're never going to meet each other, right? Like, it would be impossible for us to meet each other, even if we manage to send messages to each other.
Yeah, but that's like a message in a bottle, just like, here's hoping.
Like, hey, we noticed you. And then we send a message back, oh, we noticed you noticing us. But we'll never meet each other unless we become godlike or something, right? So, and if that happens, we'll probably, and also if they ever manage to reach us, they're probably going to be here to annihilate us, I think, because what other motivation would they have to come meet us? Like, if you're that advanced to be able to travel distances that are light years apart, then you probably have figured everything out. Like, you have no need for food or energy. Like, you could, like, if that's your capabilities, that you could travel like light years, then the only why would you come here? There's nothing you could learn from us. We don't have anything to give you. You have, like, you could turn matter into energy anytime you want. Like, you're traveling light years. There's nothing here for you. there's no curiosity that you're trying to satisfy, because you are so godlike that itch has already been scratched to forever, to point of full satisfaction. So the only reason, if you're that godlike, the only reason why you would have, the only motivation that you have to come here is because you want to prevent anything else in this universe close in your neighborhood to become godlike, so that it might not be like, it's just game theory, right? In that situation, you will come here to just make sure that we're fully wiped out, so we'd never become a challenge to you. But go on.
When we were talking, I was doing a little Googling out of curiosity about life in our solar system, and I found this article published by The Guardian a week ago titled "Mini Neptunes Beyond Solar System May Soon Yield Signs of Life." And basically it talks about how researchers have expanded the kinds of planets that they're looking for, or that they're rethinking what might be habitable. And it says they have now identified a new class of habitable exoplanets called Hycean planets, hot ocean covered and with hydrogen-rich atmospheres, which are more numerous and observable than Earth-like planets. The mini Neptune, known as K2-18b, is one, and there could be many more in the existence. And then it says, quote, "We are saying that within 2 or 3 years, we may see the first biosignature detection if these planets host life," according to James Webb. And that they are launching, the James Webb Space Telescope is due to launch in November and could aid this search. So maybe we will have, some more exciting developments in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and also just we're talking about unintelligent life. Yeah. There, obviously.
Well, and right? This is just for a detection if it could sustain life, if it could even be habitable. But habitable doesn't mean that it actually did bring forth a life form.
Yes. Interesting. Okay, cool. Should we go? Is there anything you want to highlight, or should we go to the next news?
Let's go to the next news.
Can we clap?
Yes, this is just like dramatic and kind of interesting.
Next news. Oh wait.
Okay. Next news.
Let me try again because you were talking. Next news.
Next news. Hindu militants burn Kama Sutra depicting Hindu gods in vulgar poses.
No way.
Bajrang Dal, the youth arm of the Hindu nationalist organization Vishva Hindu Parishad, burned a copy of the Kama Sutra in front of a bookstore. According to Bajrang Dal, the Kama Sutra has inappropriately depicted Hindu gods, referring to the various sexual positions shown in the group, calling the positions vulgar poses and an objectionable depiction of Lord Krishna. The copy the group burned was taken from Latitude, a book chain and gift store located in Ahmedabad. Aside from a violent protest against a book that promotes a positive view of sexuality, the group also threatened to burn down the bookstore if they continued selling copies of the Kama Sutra. The president of Bajrang Dal's Northern Gujarat chapter, his name is Jawalit Mehta, stated that the burning of the book is a warning to bookstore owners in Ahmedabad that if they keep objectionable material that hurts Hindu sentiments, next time the shops will be set on fire.
Can you read this comment that I highlighted?
Mishka is saying, "I don't understand why theists have something against sexy gods. Where do they think baby gods come from?"
This is so ironic, this news. They have gone full circle. They're like, they are becoming so influenced by sex negativity from other cultures that they're turning on their own culture. Like, this is, I am very much against Hinduism, okay? But one thing that OG Hinduism, one thing you couldn't maybe criticize it. I mean, you could technically, actually, never mind. But it wasn't as sex negative as Abrahamic religions, right? But it has become so influenced by Christianity and Islam that it has become so sex negative that the current Hindu culture is to turn on original Hindu culture. It has just gone full circle and has turned against itself. Like, this is our culture. Our current culture finds our original culture too sex positive. This is unacceptable. Our old culture is heresy to our current culture because we are too Abrahamic. It's so funny because these are people who are so anti-Abrahamic religions, and they don't have any self-awareness that this is because of the influence of Abrahamic religions that they're this sex negative, that they find this so offensive is because of the influence of the thing they hate the most, which is Abrahamic religions. It's the influence of the Islamic Empire on India and the British Empire on India, like the Victorian mindset of like purity. The
Victorians were extremely sex negative. It's one of the most like detrimental aspects of, or detrimental eras for human sexuality. It completely pathologized it in a way that was very unprecedented. Or so I learned when I was studying this for my minor in college. So D is saying, well, they will have to tear down a lot of temples, I guess. That's so true, though, because there's statues and carvings into the walls of the outside of the temples of the gods making love to each other. And, but traditionally, or maybe not traditionally, maybe this is a more modern kind of interpretation of it to try to rationalize it. They say like, oh, it's like this sex is a representation of human values or aspirations coming together to form a more perfect union. So like, I went to a exhibit in the Asian Art Museum in my area, and they were talking about how like in these sexual poses that are on temples, like the male figure, which is usually Lord Krishna, represents compassion, and the female figure, which is usually his consort or wife / I don't know, Radha. I can't remember what the female form is supposed to represent. More like maybe intellect. I can't remember. But I thought this was really interesting because this is a long-standing part of Indian culture. And I thought it was also important to bring up because some people on our team who are ex-Hindus are critical of the way we've talked about the Kama Sutra in the past, and basically us saying like, why, in response to the backlash we got for a sexy Kali, like, why are you being so sex negative? Like, this is actually part of Hindu scripture or whatever. And they say, well, just because it was written by a Hindu, that doesn't actually necessarily make it part of Hindu scripture. And it's not accurate to make that comparison the way we were.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Actually, if you notice, I have been very careful about what I just said. Like, if you rewind this video and listen to what I said, I didn't say this is Hinduism. I said this is part of India's culture, right? So, for example, I mean, text in Kama Sutra, that doesn't make it Hinduism just because it's like an early Indian text, like, or a Hindu text. Like when you say Hindu culture, you're not necessarily meaning Hinduism. Like you're maybe talking about the culture that comes from that ethnic group, right? So so anybody who wants to criticize, like, oh, this is just part of like our, early texts, and that doesn't mean it's part of the religion. Yeah, I know. That's why I was very careful. I said your early culture, like this is part of your culture. I didn't say religion, right? So, like I know what I'm saying.
Yes, I think we've gotten a lot better about talking about this than in the past. But Armin, if you go in our notes, you'll see that I left a link for a video for us to show, because it's a thread on Twitter that I think would be kind of informative.
Okay. Let me bring that up. But before I bring that up, can I just say, like, don't worry. Like, I just have got some good news for India. Like, I know a lot of people, India's, modern culture is very sex negative. Okay. But me and Susanna and the rest of Atheist Republic team are here to save India from its sex negative culture. And I will just give you one example just to make a point, right? So if you go to our website, blasphemousart.com, right? You can see blasphemousart.com. You can see a picture here. Like, we are making a lot of art just to introduce the world and India to sex positivity. So, and also because Islam is partly responsible for India becoming the sex negative, we're making Muhammad help out here, Muhammad and Rama here. So you can see this is the art that we depicted. Muhammad finds love in a Hindu god, and this is Lord Rama, and this is Muhammad, and they're having some gay adventures together, right? And we have a lot more art like this. So just
well,
go
we
to
even have a mini series called Love Jihad Kama Sutra.
Yeah, we have Love Jihad Kama Sutra, but this is the latest one that includes both Islam and Hinduism. We have a lot of art like this on blasphemousart.com. Okay, and if you want to see the uncensored version of this, you could click on there as well. Again, blasphemousart.com. Go and check out all of our blasphemous art. And India, you're welcome again. Let me just bring up the video that you mentioned.
Well, and I thought this was very relevant to us, given our Sexy Kali scandal.
Yes.
And because we were saying, like, look at like Kali, like she's a naked woman running around, literally clothed in the arms and heads of demons, and like this is what you're concerned about, like,
right.
So I wouldn't play the audio on that because he's speaking Hindi and I can't I'm assuming Hindi. I can't understand the word he's saying, but you can kind of just play that as B-roll. So first they start off and they're inside the bookstore and they're like showing off what's so objectionable. And it's, I don't know, kind of like the lack of self-awareness is very striking to me. Like,
this is before the burning?
Yeah, and then there's another video later in the thread where they're actually outside and they're burning it.
Oh, wow, okay.
Why aren't they questioning, like, why was this okay?
Right, like you're right. They're showing that this is look, they're showing very old historical statues. Like, you're right, the lack of self-awareness is
like
amazing
their culture
here.
that they literally go beat people up over was this way and celebrated and documented as such. Like the Kama Sutra, my understanding is that it's a text that evolved over time. I could be wrong. Like it was celebrated as such, and here they are trying to burn it.
No, like, you're right, because this book is new, but if you actually look at the page that you're looking at, these are his old historical stuff. So do you have a problem with like your entire, like the entire history of this? Like, are you going to also, like, if you're burning this book, are you going to go find that statues like this all over India? Like, are you going to go turn down this historical statues as well, or historical paintings? Like, this book is just depicting something that exists out there that is part of your heritage. Like, what, like, can you not maybe read the page before you actually burn it? God damn it, man. This, like, look at what you're burning. Like, the book is depicting it, but so is the statue.
You're burning. This is your culture. This is your heritage.
Oh my God. That's a very good point that you're bringing. Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing.
But I want to go back up. I want to read the caption that this person tweeted. So, breaking, Barangjal member burnt copy of Kama Sutra in Ahmedabad bookstore for showing, quote, Hindu deities in vulgar positions and threatened to burn bookstalls down if Hindu sentiments are hurt in the future. And then scroll down.
Oh my God. Like, so why are they upset about this book, but not the actual statue that is there? Like, why are they like
we're thinking,
like, have you
I think we're thinking too much.
Okay, we're thinking too much.
And then they go down and it says Vatsayana's Kama Sutra has been the pride of India for centuries and has been the sculptures of Jata Idlora, Khajuraho, and Konark. So what do we expect? Bamiyan Buddha style demolition of all Indian heritage?
Amazing. These people just hate sex. I think they just don't get laid, and they just want everyone else to be as miserable as they are.
It's amazing of how much sex negativity is literally just that. Like, so much sex negativity is literally just, I don't get laid, so no one can either.
This is why they have love jihad conspiracies, because they can't comprehend Muslims getting laid unless there's a conspiracy behind it. Like they can't, like, how is this possible? Like, how are these people getting laid? Like, how are they getting laid and we're not? This must be a conspiracy.
Yeah, so here's where they're actually burning it. Whoosh!
Okay, they
and then they started
something
yelling like Jai Shri Ram.
Yeah,
like
Jai Shri
literally
Ram
on
for people who
cue.
don't. Jai Shri Ram, by the way, for people who don't know, is the Allahu Akbar of Hinduism, right? And it means like, long live Lord Ram. Is that
Glory
to Lord Rama? I mean, long live doesn't make sense. He's like immortal, so you're right. Long live, like he literally can't. I mean, he does. He's not immoral. He just reincarnates.
Gossam is saying they're shouting takbir.
Takbir. Wait, they should like say Ram Akbar. That would be amazing. Ram Akbar. Ramo Akbar.
But what I liked about, and then the person who made that Twitter thread brings up a very good point. Wait, I wanted to read one more thing. Because he's saying, what should we expect? Are they going to start like how the Taliban like destroyed that famous Buddha, like in a demolition of Afghani heritage? Like, are we going to start expecting them to start destroying our own Indian heritage in the same way, like in the pursuit of like iconoclasm, trying to construct an idea of our past that never existed? It's historical revisionism. You're actually doing a disservice to your own heritage more than you perceive that book to be doing so.
Yeah. You're Islamizing your Hinduism.
Your Abrahamic mindset is showing.
Yeah. By the way, for people who don't know, this is what they tell us. It's so funny because they hate us, and they tell us that the reason why we're like, me and Susanna are so, disgusting.
We're perverted, Armin. We're so perverted.
Yeah, the reason why we're perverted is because I'm an ex-Muslim and Susanna is an ex-Christian, and even though we're atheists, we still have that Abrahamic mindset, and that's why we're so interested in sex and sexuality, because people with Abrahamic mindsets are perverted. But they don't understand that it's actually their sex negativity that is Abrahamic. It's not us. Our sex positivity is not Abrahamic. Your sex negativity is Abrahamic. So you who hate Abrahamic religions, you have no idea how much you've been influenced by Abrahamic religions. Anyways. So. Oh, by the way, read this comment that while I get the next one.
Purwal is saying, this is something Hindutva have been doing. They've managed to eliminate a lot of time-honored traditions in many parts of rural India. I'd be interested for like another example of that.
One thing, well, here, let me actually be like a devil's advocate here. One good thing that, for all the things that we hate about Hindutva, one good thing about Hindutva is one thing that they seem to be wanting to eliminate about time-honored tradition is casteism, right? So the caste system.
So they say.
I don't know if it's true or not. You're skeptical of that? I mean, they are so.
Maybe that might be like
they're so anti-Islamic that they want to unite all Hindus against Islam. So they're like, let's get rid of the caste system because Islam is the greater threat, right? So, yeah. So I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, like, so that we're not completely.
I'll acknowledge that definitely is an ideological, or that's part of the ideology. But I think just on my own observation of the news and stuff, I don't know how much that's actually a belief that's very well practiced throughout their supporters or their community or their many militant organizations.
Right. By the way, even if it's true, doesn't mean that we're not going to criticize all the other horrible things about Hindutva. Okay, we'll give them that if that's true, right? If Hindutva is actually against the caste system, we were like, okay, good, you're against the caste system. That doesn't mean all the horrible bigotry that you have is going to be ignored. So we're like, oh yeah, we're not gonna we're not going to be against the Dalits, but we're anti-Muslim bigots. So, okay, you don't have one form of bigotry, but you have another form of bigotry. All right, can we see? Actually, some people in the live chat are from India, I assume, are saying Hindutva never opposed caste system. Okay, so that's why you're saying if, because we keep hearing that they do. All right. So we don't know how accurate that is, but a lot of Hindutva keep telling us that, why are you guys against Hindutva when Hindutva is trying to get rid of the caste system? So that's why we don't know how accurate that is. So we keep saying if that's true.
Or get rid of casteism. Technically,
casteism. Yeah, you're right.
The system has been abolished, but it's still very much a problem.
The system hasn't been abolished. The system has been outlawed. But just because something is outlawed in India, it doesn't mean that it's abolished.
You're right.
Yeah. All right, so
semantic, but important.
Important, yes. Can we clap for the next news?
No.
Ooh, okay. Next news.
Next news. Pakistani model strangled to death by brother in quote unquote honor killing. And I say quote unquote because we refer to it popularly as honor killing, but of course, no one here actually believes that there is anything honorable in this. Anyways, on July 11th, Muhammad Aslam reported to the Defense B police station that his stepsister had been murdered and raped. I'm not saying the full word because of YouTube. Aslam stated to the police that he discovered his sister's body on the floor during a visit to her house on July 9th. The victim is Nayab Nadine, a 29-year-old Pakistani model who had recently returned from a trip to Dubai. The police were eager to resolve the murder case. Evidence collected from the crime scene indicates that Aslam was the last person to have seen Nadim alive. Aslam then confessed to the murder. In his confession, he explained that he killed Nadim because she was, quote, disgracing the family's honor because he suspected her of having relationships with different men. During his last visit, he and the victim had an argument which led him to strangle her to death. To mislead the police, he stripped her clothes and made it appear as a RAPE/murder case. As of yet, no report indicates Muhammad Aslan. No reports indicates him of being charged with murder.
Wait, what? No reports indicate that he's charged with murder? Why hasn't he been charged? Why hasn't he been charged with murder?
Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I'm just saying at the time that we published this, we could not confirm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there was
and I also want to note, our writer made a very good note that in some reports he's referred to as Muhammad Aslam, some Muhammad Ali, just for clarity.
Okay. We have a very good writer, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps noticing things. Yeah, guys, by the way, check out the link to all this news is in the description. Check out our news articles and they all come sourced. You can see all these hyperlinks. Our writer does a very good job to make sure that it links to where the news we're getting the multiple sources that we use to get the news from. So yeah. So there was no actual, as far as we know, RAP. Again, we say RAP because YouTube might be sensitive to certain words, but there's no actual, he just made it look like that. He didn't actually do that to his own sister, right?
Yes. He was trying to throw off the case, throw the police off, do a little red herring, try to, distract them from him possibly being a suspect because he actually was the one that reported it to the police.
Right. Again, we have to go through this every time something like this happen. Is this people might say well, what does this got to do with Islam, right? And again, because we're reporting this on Atheist Republic, this was honor killing, and this is in Pakistan. So naturally, a lot of our audience is going to assume that this is because of Islamic teaching, right? Especially because you can see the word honor killing, but then some people are no, this is not Islamic. This is something cultural because there's nothing in Islam. And this is actually accurate. Okay. I'm going to say something that's going to make it seem like this has nothing to do with Islam. And then I'm going to rebut that. Okay. I'm going to say why this is actually, you could blame Islam for this. Okay. I've done this many times, but we have to do it every time we cover the news. Okay. So it's true that there's nothing in the Quran or any Islamic hadith that justifies this. Zero. Okay, there's zero. Am I saying there's no death? The death penalty is not the punishment for adultery in Islam? No, I'm not saying that. It is. Like, you could. There is a lot of Islamic hadith that specifically, and also Quran, that would justify.
I have a question.
Yeah. No.
Is premarital sex considered adultery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but according to the Quran, the punishment for that is, flogging, right? But according to hadith, the punishment for that is stoning, right? And according to hadith, there was a Quranic verse that allows you, that also the punishment for adultery is stoning. However, that Quranic verse was eaten by a goat, according to Aisha, right? So we still have hadith that says that the stoning is a punishment for adultery, but we don't have a Quranic verse that says the punishment for adultery is stoning. The Quran just tells you that you're supposed to flog them. However, hadith is part of Islam, but even if there is that punishment for adultery in Islam, you can't just, like, Islam doesn't allow you to just, like, willy-nilly go ahead and for a brother without any court, without any hearing, without any due process. You apparently need like 5 eyewitnesses, right? Which it wasn't produced here. Again, I'm not trying to defend Islam. I'm just telling you what Islam teaches, okay? So this is not acceptable in the behavior of this brother. Is not acceptable based on Islamic practices. Like, this is not allowed, what he did, right? However, can we still not blame Islam for this? Of course we can. Of course we could blame Islam for this, even though this is not according to Islamic scripture, right? Because the influence of Islam or religion on culture is not just one-to-one. Like, it's not just like, here's the scripture, here's the practice matches scripture, and therefore this is like, it's not that the influence of scripture is something that you could just take certain behavior and you could find a mirror image of that in scripture, and that would be the only influence of religion, right? The example I give people is that like, child abuse is not encouraged in Christianity. There's nowhere in the New Testament or the Old Testament that tells you that priests can abuse, that allows the abuse of children by priests, right? But there's ways that Christianity has created an environment where you can see, or Christianity and other religions, that creates environments where children are more likely to get abused by religious leaders than in other environments. And for example, it could be that the teaching in Christianity that makes all sins forgivable through Jesus Christ might encourage certain behavior that you think that you will be forgiven for because you have access to God for forgiveness. Or it might be that Christianity encourages certain trusts to certain people that don't, and certain credibility and certain authority to some people to take care of children because they're seen as a moral man or man of God. And in other environments, when you trust people with children, you look for signals and you look for credentials and for other ways to be able to trust people with children. But in a religious circle, because these are supposed to be moral men or man of God, you give trust to people that don't deserve that trust, and that will put children in a more vulnerable position. So it's not that Christianity, there's any scripture in Christianity that encourages child abuse, so that you can't see like anywhere in the Bible that allows that, but still Christianity in an indirect way creates environments where that's more possible. For example, similarly, like honor killing in Islam, what we describe as honor killing is not something that in Islamic text is encouraged or allowed. However, this, the misogyny in Islam, the way that purity culture, modesty culture, shame associated with behavior like this, the way women are described in Islam, the way that seems like women are possession of men, the way that men have authority over women, the way it seems like men are allowed to, Islam has many scriptures and many teachings that shows that men are allowed to do certain things to women that are brutal, that are not, so creating that environment where make men feel that they have this authority over women, that this is their position, and mix that with a culture that encourages modesty culture, purity culture, shame culture. It will make it more likely to a culture that has honor killing in it is more likely to be created in an environment where religion like this is dominant, right? So even if the relationship is not one-to-one, honor killing is a side effect of Islam. But even if you can't find it in the scripture. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Well, thank you.
I also wanted to talk about something very important when we're covering this news stories, because this is just like one instance of hundreds of instances that happen in Pakistan in particular. And we only tend to hear about the ones that happen to women that are more upper in a higher class, basically. So, one fact is that Pakistan has the highest number of documented and estimated honor killings per capita of any country in the world. About 1/5 of the world's honor killings are committed in Pakistan, which is 1,000 out of 5,000 per year total. For comparison, I believe, and people can fact check me on this, that so if they're and 5,000 is probably a low, it's probably a very conservative estimation. But if 1,000 of the 5,000 comes from Pakistan, I believe another 1,000 out of the 5,000 comes from India. India is substantially larger. And again, there's all sorts of issues and limitations regarding reporting. But I think that alone gives some perspective into how severe the situation of violence against women is in the country. And it's so frustrating to me, like with the story we covered last week with the Pakistan Park incident, where a woman and her friends was assaulted by literally hundreds of men. Is that then there are leaders like Imran Khan who then point to these problems of quote unquote sexual immorality, as to use like their kind of terminology, in society, and blame it on basically being westernized, saying that this is the influence of Western society on our children because they have more access to phones, and that's why this is happening more. And that if children would just turn back to the ways of our Prophet Muhammad, then we wouldn't have these issues like this, which is incredibly frustrating for
why are
people
you
who
the
actually
leading
study
country?
these issues and have some insight into where these ideas around the possession of ownership come from. It's a step backwards.
If it's because of westernization, why is Pakistan the leading country and not the Western countries? And when it comes to honor kill, I have a question. Okay, too much thinking. I have a question though. What are the percentage of honor killings what percentage of honor killings happen in Islamic countries / communities?
I don't know. Let me look at this source really quickly.
Because like I think excluding, if you take India out, like I think it's either like I would assume that like over 90% of honor killings is either India or Islamic country / community. Do you know what I mean? So only India is like so I would say like maybe around 20% of honor killing is India. I'm just guessing, right? And then 70% of the rest, I'm just guessing, I have no idea. Let's see if this is true. 70% is either Islamic country or Islamic community. And then the remaining 10% would be elsewhere. That's what I'm guessing.
It's hard to find proper statistics on these things. So one major place where I find this data is the Honor-Based Violence Awareness Network. But their statistics and data don't actually elucidate how they're finding this data, how they're collecting it, how up to date this data is. So they just say that there's 5,000 per year, 1,000 in India, 1,000 in Pakistan, 12 in the UK, which is not very
12 what?
detailed.
12 what in the UK? 1,200?
honor killings in the UK per year.
12. Oh, just 12. 1, 2, 12.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Wait, I shouldn't be laughing at this. No, but like, why is all of a sudden, why like they go to 12 in the UK? Like, you're like, oh, 1,000 in Pakistan, 1,000. Like, isn't there a huge gap? Like 12? Like, what about the rest of the, we're missing a big 3,000 here. It's weird that they all of a sudden jump to a country that has 12.
Yeah, that's something that's really frustrating for me as someone who's a nerd, is the lack of really detailed and quality research onto this subject that's comprehensive across the world and not just within specific nations. So I can't give you a more detailed answer about the prevalence being more or less in Islamic countries.
Okay, I will bet that it's like at least 70% Islamic, 20% India, and the rest, I don't know, scattered everywhere. You want to read some of these comments while I get the Rick's news?
Yeah, blank name is saying, I dispute that. If Pakistan had the same quality of living standard as Sweden, then I would say this probably won't happen, which is not to say that it doesn't have an influence. Actually, blank name, I'm inclined to agree with you. Just the circumstances, particularly if women are better educated throughout society, you just see less of this stuff. And that's not me trying to victim blame women who are less educated. That's not what I mean. It's more of an indicator of the standard of life for women in that society and opportunities available to them. Am I making sense, or am I coming off as victim?
No, you make sense. No, just okay. But I think I completely disagree with blank name, not because what he's saying is not true, but because he misunderstands what we're saying. Okay, nobody said we're not saying Islam is the only factor. The claim is not that Islam is the only factor. The claim is that Islam is a factor. Obviously, anything social related is multifactorial. So obviously, the quality of life economics has an influence. This is like we're talking about socioeconomic issues. Everything has an influence. Okay, it's about how much of an influence. And when you say Islam is a fact, like you guys need to become better understanding of when we're talking about policy, socioeconomics. You have to actually learn how complicated and multifactorial these things are. Like when you hear somebody saying this is a factor. When this is being said, instead of hearing this is a factor, what you're actually hearing, because you're not paying attention, is like somebody saying this is the only factor. That's not the claim, okay? If Islam is a factor, and economy is a factor, and culture is a factor, and policy is a factor, and access to education is a factor, all of these is a factor, then if you improve one of these things and it solves the issue somewhat. If for example, let's say you have honor killing in a society, right? And you improve education and you improve economics, and you see that honor killing gets reduced. Okay, so if you see that and you actually prove that those things were a factor, that doesn't deny that those other things were also a factor. That doesn't deny Islam was a factor. Okay, that just shows that these other things were also factors. Obviously. Do I even need to say this? Is this so hard to understand?
No,
for example, let me make this very easy. Okay, let's say economics is a factor. That means if economic situations improve, honor killings will go down. Okay, and also let's say Islam is a factor. That means that if Islam becomes less of an influence, even if you keep education and economic factors the same, if the influence of Islam goes down, honor killing will go down. So if you keep if this is I'm not saying these are true or not, I'm just saying if this is the claim, this is what you would expect to see. You keep the other things the same, you reduce one of them, it will improve. You reduce Islam, the situation will improve. Increase education, increase economics, things will improve. These are really simple concepts, guys. Multifactorial. Remember, multifactorial. But go on.
Blank name is saying, I misunderstood. Sorry. Guys, if you misunderstand and then Armin is going in on you, it's mainly because he's using that as an opportunity to make a point in general, not going after you personally. But I also want to add that while I said that if I think that if the material conditions for both men and women improved in Pakistan, we would probably see less of this. I would reckon that we would still see more of it than we would in equivalent countries that have a similar quality of life and GDP. Because when you see cultures based around honor specifically that involves an entitlement or possession of women within one's own family, you see these instances, as is the case in India, which isn't necessarily Islamic. We see this a lot in Hindu communities there. Zakuro is saying, but let's not lose heart. Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, is becoming increasingly popular in Pakistani universities. Students and lecturers are being influenced. Yes, there is a great desire for new thought and free thinking in Pakistan, that's for sure. I know because I talked to so many of them.
Is this actually true? Because I want to know which Pakistan university has the balls. Like, I know, like,
as a lecturer.
Yes, like, because I know, like, these books are becoming very popular and people are just downloading them left and right from the internet and reading them. But do we actually have Pakistani universities where the professor is officially like, let's read the God Delusion? And if yes, does that, like, how much balls do you need to have in Pakistan to be able to, like, maybe, like, are they like saying, like, hey, come, let's critique this evil? Maybe I have to, I don't know. Like,
no, that's how often it's posited. Like, we're going to deconstruct the falsehoods of these dirty atheists. And then meanwhile, there's people in class who are like, oh my God.
No, but somebody confirm that if this is actually true, that they're like, somebody's officially announcing, like, has the balls enough to come and say, like, oh yeah, guys, yeah, let's study the God Delusion. Like, is that actually happening? Oh yeah, actually, guys, here, Harris Sultan has talked about this in his YouTube channel. Not obviously official, but it's something neither Imran Khan nor Pakistani. Okay, so not official. Okay, so it's not official, because that would be extremely ballsy. I don't know, or maybe not very smart. All right, so can we clap for the next news?
It's not great.
Oh, next news then.
Okay, next news. Christian school forces coach to quit for refusing to denounce being gay. On August 19th, Inoke Tonga, a volleyball coach in Valor Christian High School, was invited to meet in a quote-unquote spiritual connection session with one of his supervisors, or some of his supervisors. He was repeatedly asked to confirm if there were any quote-unquote changes to his lifestyle that the school's superiors should know about. It became apparent that the school authority had an issue with Tonga being gay and supportive of the LGBTQ community. He was ultimately left with two choices. He could denounce being gay and delete his social media posts regarding his identity and support for the LGBT community, or he can continue living as a gay man, true to himself, but he would essentially be forced out of his job. Tonga's Instagram post gathered support from parents, students, and alumni. Students organized a walkout in support of Tonga and expressed their dismay with the school's decision. An official statement from the school claims that Tonga, quote, misrepresented many aspects of this matter, but did not specify exactly what was misrepresented.
Where is this?
This is in America, baby.
How is this possible? How is this still possible? Okay, let's try to be skeptical. We don't know. They didn't mention what was misrepresented at all?
No.
Do we have any evidence that this is what the school said, like what they're claiming the school has done is actually true, or are we just going based on he said, she said?
as of the writing, when I was researching this, like there wasn't a firm statement from the school. And this has happened before, actually. There was another former coach, her name was Lauren, that was forced to leave back in 2019 for being gay. And when she heard about Tonga's experience and what he went through when it was kind of making the news, that's when she reached out to him and started speaking out about her experience of basically going through the same thing.
Do we have any?
It happened in around the Denver area in Colorado, by the way. So it's America.
Do we have it? Yeah. Do we have anywhere like that actually shows that anybody mentioned change in lifestyle? Like this is an allegation that they said that they asked them to. So it's right now. It's at the point of allegation that they asked me to remove these posts, or do we actually have anything to show that they asked him this?
This is just his account of what happened.
Okay. So let's just be skeptical. We don't know if we're just reporting what has been said here. We don't know, because I don't want to be like, oh, like I wanted to like let go and be just like go on full on outrage mode, right? But then if all of a sudden the news comes out that, oh, this was like misreported, right? And this is not actually what happened, then I'm gonna look very silly, right? Just in case that somebody is not reporting things. But if this is true, if it's actually being reported accurately, and if the allegations are true, then holy crap! Like, how could you think that you could get like honestly, like the reason why I want to be skeptical is because it is possible that some people are just addicted to getting a lot of attention, and then they will like misrepresent the story. Again, I'm not accusing this person of that. Like maybe his story is completely true, right? But we just have to be skeptical, because there are some people out there who want to be the victim. And then they will be like, this, they said this to me, and there's no way to prove that they said this to him, and there's no way to disprove it either. So given that we are pro-LGBT, it would just be easy to just assume that this is true, and then just go full on, go into like this, try to be the heroes that are defending, but just like, I'm just trying to be skeptical, okay? But if this is true, go on. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I mean, I was poking around the school's website right now, and it looks like a really nice school. But they have no form of press release that I can see on their website. I was looking in local newspapers. All of the updates from the local newspapers are just regarding, the second teacher coming forward saying this also happened to me, and the response from the school community basically supporting this teacher. So I appreciate your skepticism, but thus far, and local newspapers reached out to the school, and I believe they declined to comment. So, it all points towards this man's account so far being uncontested. But there were so many aspects of this that disturbed me. So first of all, the fact that when it was the campus pastor and the athletic director that pulled him into what they call the spiritual connection, like for this meeting. So to frame it as like, this is our way of calling you in spiritually because we care about you, is just like so abusive, first of all. And so on his Instagram page, he has a post where he details his experience, and they asked him if there were changes in lifestyle that they should know about, and he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they started repeatedly asking him this question, and he was like, no, I'm doing well.
Verbally? This was verbal communication? Yes. Okay.
In person. And then finally they asked if they'd posted something inappropriate on his social medias, and he's like, I don't post anything that would go against Valor's culture and beliefs. And he's like, I don't post anything that's be inappropriate. Like, I teach high school children, like teachers have to be very conscious of this kind of thing. And then they're like, if did you talk about being gay? And he's like, yeah, I did. And then he said, of course, I advocate for LGBT brothers and sisters, especially those who are struggling to find a relationship with God, because this man is a very firm and believing Christian, actually. The culture document of Valor Christian that was given to me during the interview process, meaning when he joined the school, didn't mention anything about their stance on the LGBT community. I will add that the pastor purposefully and ignorantly would say LGBTQ incorrectly. He would say LGGB, or whatever at one point. The gates were open.
Is this on record? Is this on record? Like,
this is his account of what this conversation was in person.
Oh, okay.
I sat in the room being grilled about how being gay is a danger to the school and to the kid. That me, quote, identifying as a gay man, they can't put the kids at risk by having me in front of them, end quote. I wished I would have advocated for myself and stood my ground instead of falling victim to feeling bad about myself and hating myself all over again due to the conversations and the words that they were spitting at me. And then he talks about how God sent angels down to him to hold his dignity and not cry and stand tall in front of this really abusive tactic in my eyes. And then he continues, they went even so far as telling me, quote, parents pay too much money to have their kids be coached and taught by someone like you who identifies as a gay man. Also, quote, in fact, hearing how much love you have for these kids, I don't even think you are gay. You just need some direction to reach the goal of becoming a child of God, end quote. As if being gay disqualifies me from being a child of God. Many things were stated and shared during this quote-unquote spiritual connection. In closing, they asked me where we go from here. They proceeded by telling me that they aren't trying to, quote, convert me into being a straight man, and that ultimately I had two choices. One choice was to, quote, denounce being gay. I want you to cut off that part of who you think you are. Go home and delete any posts on social media that speak about being gay. We want you to realize you aren't gay. You need to become a child of God, end quote. No more goals of getting married to the love of my life, who is a man. By doing this, they'd allowed me to continue my journey as a coach at Valor Christian. The other option was, of course, to do the opposite, to be true to who God made me to be, a gay child of the Almighty. One of them even said, quote, I don't want to seem like I'm hanging a coaching position over your head to convert you, but we just can't have you in front of the kids if you identify that way. Another was followed by saying, quote, we will make an email for you to send out and make sure that it states you are away for personal matters. So that way, when you make your decision to accept God and our help, you can come back and they don't have to know of your spiritual battle. This is ultimately to protect you and our kids. We don't want this to affect your other places of work. And I sat in that room for an hour and a half being belittled by men who knew nothing about who I am, what I've done in life, what obstacles I've overcome, and the understanding I have of the living scripture, and more important, the love I have for my Savior and Lord God. With my head held high and with tears ready to be shed for hours, even days, I walked away knowing that my journey as a coach at Valor Christian had come to an end. I was not going to, quote, denounce identifying as a gay man. According to them, this would lead to me being released as a coach. And it continues, but I thought that was a really interesting account of what happened. And it's kind of on a more personal note for me, as someone who is bisexual and was raised as a Christian. It brought up a lot of feelings for me, just of how abusive these tactics are, and the way that they use language, and they try to otherize and just totally distance and belittle this man with so many different ways of the way they're talking about him and his relationship to God and stuff. It's really painful. And for me personally, it very much confuses me over how someone can continue to be a Christian while faced with this kind of attitudes and these beliefs about the scripture and stuff. But everyone has their own journey and their own relationship. But to me, that's in my life, that's a contention that can never be resolved. And it's interesting that other people can still kind of bridge that gap, I guess.
Yeah. So all of this is disgusting if true, absolutely horrible. Like, this is like, what a pile of crap. Like, what a, like, this is the most disgusting thing you could say to somebody that is gay. Well, not the most, but still very bad. But again, I just want to say, I keep saying if true, and I feel like some people in the live chat are not appreciating me saying if true. Like, let me like read this one. Marcia is saying, Armin, do you not believe this ridiculous religiosity occurs every day in some form? Of course I do. Like, I didn't deny it doesn't. First of all, I hope people understand if I'm saying if true, that is not at all saying that this story didn't happen. Okay, I'm just putting the possibility out there, just that it didn't. But I'm not saying it. I'm not claiming that it didn't. I'm just including that as a possible thing. That's all I'm doing. Okay, I'm not claiming that this is not a real thing, not a real story. Just, just being a bit skeptical. Also, even if this story is not real, I'm definitely not claiming that this doesn't happen. In fact, I'm almost sure that it happens all the time. Even if this is not true, it still happens. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Like, I don't understand if I'm being skeptical here, does that mean that I'm denying that this is like a people being discriminated for their homosexuality based on religious reasons? If I'm like saying that it's a possibility that the story is not real, do you think I'm denying that it happens everywhere else? Of course I'm not. It's United States. Of course it does, right? It happens many other places as well, right? And another thing is, so you want to say something before I?
Yeah, I was just poking around Instagram, and I saw a really lovely post, and I wish I could show it, but it definitely includes people who are high school students and minors, so we can't show that on YouTube. But it's like wonderful photos of these protests that they all organized in support of him, and him like hugging the kids, and them talking about like how they're signing petitions and organizing to like rally around him. And if you guys are curious about this, I actually found an open letter that students and alumni have written to the school called Valor for Change, if you guys want to learn more about the situation. According to this open letter, they talk about repeated and failed attempts to actually gain a meeting or even a phone conversation with school supervisors. So that lends credence to me saying that the school hasn't really made comment or been more specific about what their account of what happened was.
All right, can you read this one? Yuval.
Atheist Republic. Yuval is saying, I feel for this man, but didn't he realize that opposing gays is part of Christian doctrine? These news are regrettably not at all surprising. Well, he says that in his intake interview and in his account, based on the contracts of the school, he was not aware of their position on the LGBT community or anything of that sort. So, no, his interpretation of Christian doctrine is that these aren't mutually exclusive, so maybe he wasn't going to make that assumption that other people felt differently. And I don't know the kind of denomination for this school, but I know in a lot of Catholic schools, they have morality clauses that are very specific about this kind of thing. And I'm not sure to what extent the contract that he signed with the school actually had an explicit morality clause. But based on his telling, there was nothing specific, but I can't verify that.
All right. So do you want to highlight anything else before we go to the next news?
No.
Okay. There's something I want to highlight, but to crap on, but I don't know if you're comfortable with it, so I'm not going to do it.
What?
There's one comment that I want to highlight and I want to like attack, but I don't know if you're comfortable with it, so I'm not going to do it.
Do it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You're sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Zakura, I'm going to crap on what this comment. Okay. You're saying, Susanna, since you're bisexual, who's your dream girl, or what should her personality be like if she doesn't exist yet? Okay, so I don't know if Susanna is okay with this question or not. She might be okay, but I just want to tell you guys, don't ask about people's sexual lives as soon as you find out that they're gay or bisexual, because I just think you're reducing, like, you're not, it's not an invitation. Like, if somebody tells you that they're bisexual or gay, that is not an invitation for you to make their sexual life a topic. Okay, maybe they're comfortable with it, maybe they're not, but it's just like, that's one reason why I think a lot of people don't. I want more people to be open about the fact that they're bisexual or gay, because if they are more open about it, it normalizes bisexuality or, and gayness and all that other stuff. But if they think like, this is like, as soon as I do that, all of a sudden people are going to ask me questions about my sexual life. I mean, a lot of people are not comfortable opening themselves to people talking to them about their sexual life, questioning them about their sexual life. And this might discourage a lot of other people to tell you that they're bisexual or gay, because that, it just seems like a green light now. All of a sudden my sex life, it becomes like a green, like they think it's an open invitation for that to become a topic, right? So, you might find examples of people being okay with it, but you can't just assume that. So that's my opinion. What do you think?
I appreciate it. And, I'm actually like very open about these kinds of things. Although I do explicitly label myself as bisexual because I don't want to explain what pansexual is, like, all the time, because that gets so tedious. But on a different day when it's not off topic, like, I can talk about this kind of thing. And Armin, remind me to tell you something after the show in regards to this that happened last night that's actually pretty hilarious.
All right. Sorry, Zachary, I didn't mean to push you under the bus for this. It's something I just want to also, like, it's also, so Zachary saying couldn't resist that itch. I threw the issue of privacy under the bus. I apologize. No, that's completely okay. I just like,
I accept your apology.
Yeah. And also
no big deal.
Another thing I want people to remember is that not every trans person is a trans right activist. Okay. Some people are just trans, and that doesn't mean that if they tell you that they're trans, all of a sudden that's a green light for you to talk about trans right issues or trans issues or science or gender and sexuality. Like, if somebody tells you that they're trans, that is not an invitation for you to start questioning them. You might ask, like, hey, is it okay if I, like, is that okay? Especially if somebody is a trans and also a trans right activist, that means that's what they do. So maybe that's a green light for you to ask them, because that's literally what they do. But not every trans person is like knowing that they're trans is an open invitation for you to asking them about their genitals, about their surgery, about science, about gender issues, about rights issues. A trans person, for example, is much more than just a trans person. So just keep that in mind, right? Anyways.
Secular Rare is saying, come on, Armin, we all know you're going to yell at us all at some point.
Sorry. I apologize for that. All right. Can we clap for the next news?
No.
Okay. Next news.
Arizona family tried to kidnap pregnant woman over non-Muslim boyfriend. Authorities arrested 6 family members in Peoria, a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, for allegedly trying to kidnap a 20-year-old female relative because she has a non-Muslim boyfriend and is approximately 5 months pregnant. In Maricopa County Superior Court, detectives filed a probable cause statement stating they believe that the 6 arrested family members planned to send the woman back to Iraq. Once in Iraq, it is possible that both her life and the unborn's child life could become victims of an honor killing. The family attempted multiple times to kidnap the pregnant girl. In March 2021, the police said the victim, her boyfriend, and his family fled to Yuma, Arizona to escape her family's harassment and violence. But her family still found them at the hotel they were staying at and attempted to kidnap her again.
Okay, so let me get this straight. This was a woman who got pregnant with the non-Muslim boyfriend, right? And
Correct.
and the family was upset, so they were trying to kidnap her, send her back to Iraq to potentially do an honor killing on her and her baby.
That it's possible.
Mm.
She had good reason to believe that they were going to kidnap her back to Iraq.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to the police in Arizona and whoever was responsible for managing to stop this before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we need to fund the police, by the way. This is what what they're there for. This is what they're there for. Yeah, but no, I mean, I guess like we should have clapped for this. They managed to stop this. Like, here, I'll clap now. Thank you, police, because we do. No, like, thanks to the people. Like, maybe we should put a positive spin on this. Like, I'm glad that this was stopped. Like, how did they stop it? Like, did they how did they find out before it happened? Like, do you know the?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, this saga has been going on for some time. This woman, her boyfriend, and his family have filed over 20 police reports in various precincts of Arizona. The reports document accusations of harassment, disorderly conduct, aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and aggravated assault. And the woman and her boyfriend are unidentified.
Is that her?
She was previously successfully kidnapped in Yuma. In a Yuma, Arizona police report, the victim's brother was arrested last March for successfully kidnapping her. He had planned to take her back to her family, likely for an honor killing. However, the family's kidnapping efforts did not end there. The woman was allegedly forced into a parked car on August 18th in Avondale. That is where the family reportedly started punching her in the abdomen. There are 2 witnesses in the parking lot who helped the victim escape, police said. Peoria revealed the family members who were arrested on August 27th. Court documents contain details from detectives regarding the accusations of recent assaults and threats at medical buildings in Avondale. They described how the relatives confiscated the woman's her purse, cell phone, as well as her boyfriend's gun during a violent assault. The woman grabbed one of the officers and pleaded with him, saying, "Please don't let them take me." Additionally, the victim's brother allegedly left a threatening voicemail in May, promising to kidnap her boyfriend's teenage sister unless the woman returned to her family. So he's saying, he left a voicemail saying, "I'm going to kidnap your 15-year-old sister if you don't give us back like our daughter," if it was his sister, like the family's daughter. Saying, and then he literally said, like, "Your American laws aren't going to stop me, or they don't make me afraid."
How were they not already in jail after that? Like, how did they manage to get a second attempt at this?
That's what's so crazy, because they filed over 20 police reports in different precincts. They had to flee cities because of how concerted their attempts were against them.
I'm going to retract my thank you notes to the police because this is seems like a failure rather than a success. Now, originally it seemed like an amazing success from the police, but now I'm wondering, how is it possible that all these reports and the first attempt at this didn't put these people in jail? Like, I don't understand. How does that work? Like, is there any explanation on this?
Not as of yet. I mean, it got to the point where they finally did a probable cause statement, where they're saying we have enough evidence accumulated where we can just say that it's probable that this is going to happen, even if we don't have explicit, evidence of a intentional conspiracy, contemporary experience yet. So yeah, they fled to a different city, and then her family found them. Their family found them again because they had planted tracking devices on her phone.
Oh my God. Amazing. Well, here's the question. Was the punching her in the tummy so that her baby gets aborted, that was the first attempt?
That happened during the successful kidnapping, I believe.
Of the first, okay. And In what world? How is it possible that in the United States, punching somebody in the tummy to make their baby, no, not baby, the fetus die? And how is it like? I still don't understand. There's something missing here. How does that not land you in jail? Like, how is that? Oh, maybe they didn't have any proof that this happened. Maybe is that why?
I don't have enough
don't
of
know.
the details of what preceded this eventual arrest.
Maybe because they didn't have any. Maybe because these happened without any recording, or like the police didn't have enough evidence to conduct an arrest. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
just
really
thinking, yeah.
sad is that this woman is only 20 years old. Like, I can't even imagine.
Is that
going
her?
through
Is that her picture?
No, so that's actually what I'm getting to.
Oh.
She expressed her fears of dying from an honor killing, and when speaking on this, she referenced the killing of Noor al-Maliki. So here in the screen, you see a picture of Noor, and actually Noor is also from Peoria, Arizona, and also the daughter of Iraqi immigrants. Noor was also 20 years old when her father hit and killed her in a parking lot with his car. Al-Maleki's father is an immigrant from Iraq. He was convicted of murder after the prosecution determined he killed his daughter because he perceived she was becoming too westernized. So also, and it's not even like this is just another killing somewhere else. This is literally in the same city, same background. And I wanted to talk about this story because it's really important that people understand that honor killings are not reserved. I mean, if you live in North America, like this isn't, or Europe, the free world, the westernized world, however you want to put it, like this isn't something that only happens on another side of the planet. You know, this happens in our country, in our communities, all over the world. And it's important for us to raise awareness of these issues because when oftentimes I talk about these kind of issues, people try to actually paint me as some kind of bigot for talking about what happens to women in different communities across the world purely because I am not from these communities, right? And when really this actually does happen in my community, in my country, right? Just oftentimes it's behind closed doors and people don't have awareness of it. So when you're speaking about these things, not only are you standing up for women who we should stand up for, whether they're on our side of the world or another side of the world, you're also standing up for women or children in your own country, in your own community.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if these people felt like if we kidnap her and take her back to Iraq, then we would be able to do what we want. Then what does that tell you about the woman in Iraq? Right. But I have a question. How are they going to kidnap her and take her to Iraq? Wouldn't that involve getting in her on a plane? Like, were they expecting her to just be quiet the entire time? Like, wouldn't she be able to like keep like yelling in the airport and on the plane, asking for security, asking for police? Like, I feel like this plan wasn't very.
I understand what you're saying, but that kind of stuff does happen just because of the fear, the consistent trauma and fear and abuse that these victims are under. Like these things can still happen completely copacetic, like under the radar, because victims have to remain quiet or hidden just for their own immediate safety. You know what I mean? I understand your question. Like I think the same thing, but it's much more complex than just simply, make noise at the airport when you have a consistent history of being abused and threatened. You know what I mean?
I just think like when you're in the airport, then if you raise the hell, it's not like they can do anything in the airport. Like that's literally the most.
But imagine what could have happened to her preceding getting there.
Yeah, but right? you would not get there if you managed to raise hell in the airport. I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. Maybe like you're right. I mean, you're right. But here's another question. When the title says the kidnapped pregnant woman over non-Muslim boyfriend, do we know if their issue was that the boyfriend was just westernized or non-Muslim? Like, do we have any indication that if the boyfriend was like Western,
Based
nice, but
on
Muslim
reports,
right?
like the news coverage from that local area, they specifically say non-Muslim.
Okay. So according to the news, the issue was the fact that he was not a Muslim. All right, I have some other thoughts, but might not be appropriate to say because I don't know. Okay, interesting. Well, I'm glad it didn't work out. Again, there's a lot of missing information here, so there's a lot of judgments we could make that might not be accurate because we don't know exactly the things that happen, right? So, yeah, go on.
What do you think of my note or criticism of how oftentimes, like, maybe it's something that I experience because, like, I'm a white person who's never been a Muslim, like, criticism for trying to talk about these issues as if it doesn't happen where I actually am. Do you know what I'm kind of talking about? That kind of attitude?
Right. So, you're talking about the woke school people that think like you should shut up because you're a white woman. You're talking about that? Obviously, they're
more or less.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're bigots for two reasons. First, one, because they're telling you what you're allowed to say because of the color of your skin, and second of all is because their dismissal of human rights issues about people who don't live in their country. They seem to be deeming them less worthy of care just because they happen to live somewhere else, that's bigoted as well. So just shows that bigotry exists on the right and the left, more so on the right, but we shouldn't ignore the fact that the fact that it also exists a lot on the left. Okay, so yeah, it's just outright bigotry for two reasons. Does that make sense? For two different reasons. One, because they're telling you to shut up because you're white. That's bigotry. But it also because they don't seem to care about Iraqi women because they happen to be Iraqi and not Americans, right? So that's also bigotry. Does that make?
Yeah, I mean, this is why criticism of Islam is important even within our own countries that are not Muslim majority, right? Because it's actually an effort to protect young Muslim women, like I have no idea if this woman is still a Muslim, but for all intents and purposes, she is, but it's definitely within our interest, everyone's interest, to criticize the attitudes and possible doctrine that leads to this kind of violence.
I was going to make a misogyny joke, but you told me to stop that. So I'm not going to make that. I was going to make because you told me
I can't stand you.
You told me that people will think I'm being serious, so I'm going to stop doing that. But I'm just letting you know there was a very good joke here that I'm going to tell you after the stream.
I hate you.
I'm not making the joke. So there. Yeah. Okay. So can we? Wait. Actually, let me write the joke so I don't forget. Hold on 1 second. All right. Good. I'm going to tell you after this. All right. Can we clap for the next news?
To be honest, the next news, I don't think. Let's clap because we can decide how we feel about this.
We could clap with that enthusiasm.
Yes. Next news. Court rules Christian teachers.
That was enthusiasm.
I'm doing it. This is how I deliver the news, sir.
All right.
Next news. Court rules Christian teacher suspended over pro-trans policy should be reinstated. On June 8th, a Virginia Circuit Court judge ruled that Tanner Cross should be reinstated as a teacher after he was suspended. Judge James Plowman of the Loudoun County Circuit ruled that Tanner Cross was exercising his freedom of speech when he declared during a school board meeting on May 25th that he would not use the pronouns of transgender students. Cross explained that he will not, quote, affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa because it's against my religion. Less than 3 months after the appeal, the Supreme Court of Virginia ruled in favor of Judge Plowman's decision. The state Supreme Court has ordered in support of Cross his reinstitution as a PE teacher, a physical education teacher. School boards across Virginia have been updating or installing policies that promote and establish ways to help transgender students. Most of these school boards' decisions were met with severe pushback, especially due to it being in the Bible Belt. So this was interesting for a number of reasons. If you guys remember, maybe it was last week, maybe the week before, we covered a story of this Christian teacher who quit the school, her job during a school board meeting that was specifically about this pro-trans policy and whether it should be adopted. And she quit it because she basically inferring that this was against her beliefs. So this is the exact same county. And I think that we're going to be hearing a lot about what's going on in this county. But I actually think he had a good case here. So a lot, well, I disagree with him and his position. And this is partially because I'm going to have to find the exact quote in a second. But basically, the court found that it was unconstitutional because it, quote, silenced others from speaking publicly on the issue of transgender rights. When the school system tried to appeal the decision, the justices said that the circuit court, they failed to prove that the circuit court abused its discretion, saying you're like not providing a good enough of a case. And they didn't do a good job proving that his behavior and conduct was actually worthy of suspension based on their own standards. In Monday's court order, the justices wrote that they found one of Loudoun School District's main stated reasons for suspending Cross, which was that the teacher's comments about trans rights were disrupting typical school operations, unconvincing. The justices wrote that Loudoun County school system never produced any real evidence that Cross's continuation as a physical education teacher would, quote, harm children, nor was there sufficient parent outrage to justify his suspension, they concluded. So they were saying, based on your own standards of him, you basically suspended him because you said that he was disruptive to the school environment, but they said that that's not going to stand because they said that they didn't provide enough evidence that that was actually the case.
Okay, I don't understand how you could argue that. Okay, so the teacher doesn't want to affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa. So basically he's like an anti-trans person, right? Like
yes.
He doesn't understand the overwhelming science that we have around this issue, and he's like a anti-trans bigot, right? Or either he's ignorant or a bigot or religious, which means both. But I don't understand the court's argument that not allowing this teacher to be a teacher in the school, like maybe you could correct me, why would that mean that he's being silenced? Because nobody's stopping him from saying whatever he wants. Like if you don't get to have this job, that means that you don't get to say it while having this job in the school. You could still go out and now say it as much as you want. Like nobody's stopping you from saying these things. You could still go and say it outside of the school. Like you could still say, like, how is that silencing? I don't understand.
Well, because it is a public school system. So that needs to be acknowledged. It's a function of the state. And he made these comments at a school board meeting, right? So it wasn't during work hours. It wasn't while he was attending to children. I don't even know how particularly disruptive or like belligerent his what he had to say at the school meeting was. It was just on the basis of his opinion that they put him on leave. And so he sued the school for infringement of his protected First Amendment rights.
What about the First Amendment rights of the school to be able to have the policy, to be able to have their policies and hire what they deem to be appropriate, teaching attitude or right mindset? Is that not the? I don't know how you're. I mean, I'm not American. You're American. Is that not part of the First Amendment? Is that not protected?
I don't believe so in the way that you've construed it.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I think their point was just like they why is he being fired for his comments in a public meeting? It wasn't actually in his capacity as a teacher, although he was a teacher speaking about how he felt about the policy. So I can see the contention there. And so the lawsuit is actually going to proceed through the court system, but he's going to actually be able to continue work while it is ongoing. And the lawyers that are assisting him have actually turned this into a class action lawsuit, I believe. So there are other Christian teachers who are joining him in their suit against the county school system over them abusing, or their religious freedom privileges being abused because of this policy. And so that's something I don't like. I'm not... I don't have as much of a in-depth legal knowledge to know to what extent it's reasonable for the school to fire or put someone on leave for their comments that they make at a public meeting outside of school hours. To me, that feels kind of dicey. I understand why the school might have an interest in doing so, because he's voicing opposition to a policy that they ended up eventually approving. So they're maybe saying oh, you're expressing that you're going to violate our policies. But a stronger case would be that you actually did violate our policies. You actually, in your capacity as a teacher, actually did violate policies. You actually did violate the proceedings of the school.
You don't have that case because he didn't do that as a capacity as a teacher, did he?
No, he was at a school board meeting talking about his concerns as being a teacher, but he wasn't being a teacher at that moment. He was doing this in relation to his students, and the policy, I believe, wasn't even approved and in place at that point.
Okay, so does that mean that the court would be A-okay with letting this guy go if he said any of these things as his capacity as a teacher? Do you know what I mean? Then if he actually said the same things, but he was saying that in a class or as a teacher, then the court is okay, you can fire him. That's fine.
I don't have nearly enough legal understanding to be able to tell you one way or the other. In fact, what I just expressed could be an incorrect interpretation of how I understood the reporting on this.
So here's another question. If the court, I'm not saying, but if I'm asking these questions, I'm not just saying that you should have a good answer, because none of us are lawyers here, right? So I'm just putting it there as a question to wonder about, not as a question for us to have a definite answer to. Okay. I'm just wondering, and here's the thing I want us to consider. Does that mean, okay, if you can't fire a teacher because of what the views that he's expressing outside of the school, and not as his role as a teacher, does that mean if this teacher outside of the school was attending KKK rallies, right? Or if he was doing the salute, right? outside, if you have pictures on social media of him doing the Adolf salute, and he was I didn't do this in school. I didn't do this as my capacity as a teacher, in my capacity as a teacher. Then the school was this is very disturbing. Look at this teacher attending, putting the triple K costume and doing the Adolf salute, and we don't want this person as a teacher. If this teacher came and said, well, I didn't do this in school, I didn't do this as a teacher, this was completely outside of the school, and you can't fire me for this, then would this court also come and say like, yep, you can't fire him for this?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, because that would be
It's a
like
good question.
Yeah. And if you can fire him for that, then why can't you fire him for this? You know what I mean?
Well, I think a key difference would be if the hypothetical situation that you're posited did occur. Part of what the court considered in their decision was the feedback from the parents of this community. So, quote, a tiny minority of parents requested that Cross would not interact with their children, the justices wrote. However, the defendants, Loudoun County Public Schools, identify no case in which such a nominal, actual, or expected disturbance justified restricting speech as constitutionally valued as Cross. So they're kind of saying like there wasn't sufficient parent outrage to justify his suspension. So in the case that you conceived, I would think that there probably, hopefully, would be what would meet their standard of sufficient parent outrage. But that's kind of a weird metric to decide this on, in my opinion, because this is such a hot button issue in this county that the parents are, I mean, it's so contentious. They were doing metal detectors outside of and like patting down everyone who went into the school board meeting because they had to like arrest 2 people who got so riled up and rowdy just talking about this issue. And part of this has to do with like a moral panic over critical theory as well, because that's kind of been conglomerated into a giant thing. So it's obviously a lot of parents in this county feel very strongly in opposition to the ostensibly pro-trans policy. So
is it like, am I being like, is it authoritarian of me to think like schools should be able to fire teachers if they're found to be bigots? Like, is that anti-free speech? Like, is that restricting people's free speech? Like, if I don't want you, if we don't want to work with you because you seem to have some bigoted views, so we don't want you in the school, your free speech is not being violated. You can still go and say spread your garbage. You can still do that. Nobody's violating your free speech. We just don't want you here. Like, are we forced to work with you even though we like I don't understand. Like, is this like, I don't know, I have to think about this. I just don't think like this is like if violations of someone's free speech. Like, you happen to be a bigot. We have trans students here. We don't think they will feel comfortable. Like, our role is to make this an environment that they feel like they're welcome in. And you being a bigot, having this job doesn't go make like our mission to make this seem like a welcoming environment to more people. It goes against that. So that's why we don't want you here. I think a school has every right to decide that. I think you're violating the rights of the school to make these decisions for providing the service that they're there to provide for more and more people. You know, I'm open to change my opinion on that, but I think the school should have that right.
It becomes, if this was a private institution, this wouldn't be nearly as much of a problem. But this is a public institution. I think they would have a much stronger case, even in the position that you're making up, is if that was actually affecting that person's capacity or behavior within the classroom.
Okay, even if it's a public school, they still are supposed to be providing service. I mean, the fact that it's a public school, that means they're supposed to be there to provide an environment for all kinds of students, right? Like, for example, if I was Black and my teacher was a member of KKK, right? Even if he never announced that and mentioned that in school as a school teacher, this is not a welcoming environment for me if these are the teachers. Do you know what I mean? Like if that is public knowledge and I know this person has these views, if he's clever enough to make sure he never mentions that or advocates that in school, I still don't think that this school is for me if these are the kind of teachers that are teaching there. Like, you know, and as a school, I want to make sure that this is an environment where people don't feel intimidated to come, like, that is tolerant of the students. Like, you know, I'm thinking I'm more worried about like making sure that more students feel welcomed in these schools rather than this teacher being able to maintain that specific job while being a bigot. That's just, I mean, based on the limited information that I have, which could be completely inaccurate, and I'm happy to change my position of this, but that's my inclination to worry more about students, not facing bigotry and not feeling welcome in their school in school environment, rather than this teacher having to go find another job while also having the free speech to spread his garbage.
This is doubly complicated by the fact that this is a religious freedom issue. So in the issue that you're bringing up, that doesn't actually involve religious freedom. But here, he has the privilege of the protection of his deeply held beliefs,
right?
Which things are treated very differently.
Religious freedom, aka religious privilege, not actual freedom. Because other people don't enjoy your same benefits.
Well, not all religious freedom is religious privilege.
Okay, but here it is. If it's religious privilege, not freedom, when other people have to abide by certain rules and you don't have to because it's your religion, that's religious privilege. That's not religious freedom. That's religious privilege. Yes. All right. Actually, do we want to highlight anything?
Blank name is saying it depends, and then is quoting something. I'm not sure what he's quoting. So
I think he's quoting himself. I think he's quoting himself. But go on.
I'm not sure. First of all, government employees are only protected by the First Amendment when they are speaking as private citizens. And I believe at a public school board meeting, he would be speaking as a private citizen.
Yes, but protected means what? Protected, that means that you don't go to jail for what you're saying. You don't get a fine for what you're saying. The government doesn't come after you for what you're saying. It doesn't mean that government is going to protect, like that you can't lose your job for what you're saying. For example,
but it's a government job.
Yeah, but okay. For example, let me give you another example of another government job. Okay, you being a police officer, right? That's a government job. Okay. Also, me swearing is protected under free speech laws in the United States. Okay, me being a police officer is a government job. Me being able to swear at people, that's not illegal in the United States. That means it's protected under First Amendment laws, right? If I, as a police officer, go to my head officer or whatever you want to call it, I don't know how police works. I go to whoever is above me and I start swearing at him, and I get fired for swearing at my manager or whatever. That doesn't mean that your free speech was violated. Okay. You still get to go swear at people as if you're in this, you still get to write and say, use whatever swear words you want. Okay. But if the requirement for you to be a police officer is not to swear at your manager, not to use swear word against manager, even though this is a public job, even though this is a government job, that's not guaranteed. You can't be like swearing is protected under the First Amendment. This is a government job. So this is a, public, government job. That means I should be able to, as a police officer, I should be able to swear at my manager. Nope, you lose your job and your free speech hasn't been violated. Does that make sense? Is that a good example? I think that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I still feel like it's kind of weird to fire or to put someone on leave on the basis of expressing their opinion about a policy that could be in place. It wasn't even in place yet.
Right. I'm just
like, that doesn't sit right with me, even though I completely don't like his conclusion or what his beliefs are.
Even if this is not, even if this is wrong, even if this isn't set right with you, I just question the fact that it's not right because it's a free speech issue. You know what I mean? I'm just wondering if it is actually a free speech issue. If you lose your job. That's what the
courts decided.
Yeah, I'm questioning the court. That's what I'm doing. All right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to change my opinion on this. Can we clap for the next news?
Yeah.
Next news.
New study shows many Christians perceive LGBT acceptance as a personal attack. In a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, a team of researchers from the Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, revealed some interesting findings regarding the frame of mind of many conservative Christians. The research used data gathered from 5 separate studies conducted over 3.5 years from July 2016 to December 2020. In the study, the team found that heterosexual white Christians subscribe to a zero-sum bias, or ZSB, more than any other group that was studied throughout the paper. Zero-sum bias, or zero-sum thinking, is a situational perspective where an individual thinks that one person's gain translates to a loss for the other person. Clara Wilkins, the study's principal investigator, explained that since most white Christian Americans see Christianity as an integral feature of American culture, this puts them at odds with the LGBTQ plus community that they see as, quote, having increasing social influence. The team was able to identify that church leadership can use their influence over their followers to help facilitate intercultural acceptance. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I want to get a better understanding of this because this seems outrageous, but go on.
So this is very interesting. So first, I want to kind of expand upon our audience's understanding of what zero-sum bias is. So zero-sum is something that comes from game theory. But then zero-sum bias or zero-sum thinking pertains to a cognitive flaw or fallacy that many people are subject to. So an example of zero-sum bias that's very common is the perception that immigrants are going to take their jobs, someone's jobs. So they're saying, because the immigrants are gaining jobs, that means that my job is going to be taken away from me. Or another really common example is in the case of consensual non-monogamous relationships. Someone might think, oh, because my partner has love for another person, that means they don't love me or they love me less. So my loss is someone's gain, or vice versa. And in the realm of psychology, this usually comes through the case of us perceiving threats where there is not actually good evidence for threats to either ourselves or our own group's dominance. People in the live chat and Armin, tell me if that made sense. Was that clear?
Yes, but I just want to, whenever I see study shows, I'm always like, but does it really? Because a lot of times, like, people find like these small little studies that maybe were not conducted very well, or weren't peer reviewed, or the sample sizes were not very good, or it wasn't. But this was, again, I'm not saying that this proves it, but this, like, what you have here is 5 separate studies that show the same result, and like the sample sizes are like 2,000 participants, so that's a pretty good sample size, right? I don't know, like, was this published somewhere credible?
Yes, this was published. This was peer reviewed. And I want to be clear that it wasn't 5 studies showing, like, trying to replicate the same findings. That's different. This is 5 separate studies published in a single 30-page paper that I got my hands on. So I've actually read a portion of this actual published article, where they are testing and developing new hypotheses. And as from study 1 through 5, they're kind of building upon the findings of the previous work to try to identify new patterns of thinking and perceptions and beliefs. So like I said, I actually got a hold of the actual article. I wasn't, for full transparency, like I said, it's 30 pages long, so I wasn't able to read the whole thing. But if you'd like, I can walk us through some of the major findings that I thought was really interesting to kind of help paint the picture of what this was really getting at.
So when you say many Christians, what percentage of Christians we're talking? So are we talking here? Like,
it's not a percentage so much as out of the Christians that they did poll. So they polled like LGBT Christians, they polled like non-fundamentalist Christians, and then they polled what they categorize as fundamentalist or conservative Christians, and they had control groups as well.
Yeah, but when the title says study shows many Christians perceived LGBT acceptance as personal attack, do we have any idea of what the word many means here?
Well, okay. full transparency, I'm the one who has to pick the titles for our news stories, and we didn't have enough in our character count to say conservative. And I wasn't just going to say Christians in general. So it just said that there are many.
Okay. So Christians as a whole, can we tell or can't we tell Christians as a whole what percentage of them perceive
not
LGBTI?
At all. In fact, the study found that if they were not fundamentalists, they were less likely to be subject to this bias.
Not at all, meaning like close to. Do we have any percentages basically with that?
No. It's not percentage. It's based on category.
Oh, and we don't have. Okay, so fundamental Christians, what percentage of them? We don't have that either. Okay, if you don't have,
I didn't have enough time to dig into these things specifically, but it's more it's not percentage. It's like out of these groups that we categorized people on based out of their beliefs that they expressed to us. What are like the fundamentalists saying versus the non-fundamentalists versus the LGBT Christians versus our control, that kind of thing.
I see. So
it's not percentage based.
If you want to see maybe if this data, because like we didn't have enough time to dig deep into the study, right? Obviously, but Susan, our writer, were helpful enough to link to the study if you want to do a deep dive in there. So link to this article is in the description. If you want to go do a deep dive, when you click on the article, you can see that there are links to the studies. If you want to go full on nerdy on it and check out what the data says. But this is interesting because this is I don't know if this is a good way to mention it. So you could criticize me, Suze, if it's not. But this is basically saying we're bigots. Like their Christianity is turning them to bigots. Like, I mean, is this not fair to describe this as bigotry if you think like acceptance of an entire group of people is an attack on you? Like, this is like, I can't imagine this not being Christian bigotry. Yeah, go ahead.
They actually had, so within their 5 studies that are part of this paper as a whole, there were specific findings that these zero-sum beliefs are actually a function of the Christian scripture itself.
They say that?
Yes.
Wait, we have studies now we have studies, peer-reviewed studies that is now blaming Christian scripture for bigotry. That's amazing. And
the use of it. So let me get into this. So like I said, it's not percentage based on how much Christians believe this. This is likelihoods. Okay. So think of it, Armin, I want you to think about it this way. It's likelihoods. We provide evidence that on average, cisgender heterosexual Christians are more likely than other groups to view LGBT individuals as being in a zero-sum relationship with Christians, meaning if they gain, we lose. That's my commentary. In study 1, cishet Christians reported believing that decreasing discrimination against LGBT individuals corresponds to increasing bias against their own group. Study 2 demonstrated that priming religious values increases Christians' zero-sum biases. So what they mean by priming is that they would provide them with certain scriptures that supported bigotry or animus towards LGBT people. And then when they were presented with these scriptures first and then asked about their opinions, they would have stronger zero-sum biases. Okay. Together, these findings suggest that Christians are more inclined to perceive a zero-sum relationships between Christians and LGBT individuals, and that these beliefs are a function of Christian beliefs rather than sexual orientation.
Amazing. This is amazing. I wonder if it could be replicated, because that would make it even stronger.
Study 3 manipulated symbolic threat by asking Christians to consider the decreasing social and cultural influence of Christians in the US. When threat was primed in this way, Christians reported greater zero-sum biases relative to the control condition. So here, what they mean by symbolic threat is, like I said, social and cultural versus a what's the word that they use? Realistic threat would be something like an immigrant is going to take my job. That's something that actually is more tangible. That's economic versus cultural.
Yeah, realistic. But when Susanna says realistic, I just want to make it clear, you're not saying that it's more rational and possible to happen. You're just saying it's more tangible. It's like
that's a psychological term.
Then okay, So I just wanted to make it so that people don't think that you're thinking that's a rational fear to have. You're saying it's tangible.
In fact, the discussion of the study goes into actually explaining that it isn't. Thus, we provide the first evidence that symbolic threat drives zero-sum beliefs. Perceived conflict between Christians and sexual minorities stems from perceived threat to Christian values, in addition to concern about real resources, which happens on occasion. And perceived threats to values arise in response to socio-demographic changes and decreasing social influence of Christians in the United States. Conservative Christians, specifically those identifying as fundamentalists, are most resistant to social change, and thus we anticipated that they would be more concerned about maintaining Christians' social position. Consistent with this expectation, supplemental analyses for Study 3 revealed that fundamentalists experience the most threat in response to decreasing Christian influence in society. Study 4 identified an intervention to mitigate zero-sum biases by highlighting the consistency between acceptance of sexual minorities and the Christian faith for a subgroup of Christians. So, like I said, this paper goes through, they had a study, and then throughout the studies, they build upon these ideas. So by the time they reach to Study 4, they're saying, what could we actually present to these groups as an intervention to try to change the observable behavior? Okay, so what they did was provide biblical scriptures that promote acceptance, promote intercultural harmony, intergroup love and acceptance, that kind of thing, to see if it would actually change their the biases that they displayed previously. And they found that it was the fundamentalists who, even when presented with this intervention, were the least likely to be responsive to the intervention. But the other Christians and the other groups that they studied actually did respond positively, and they did see more of an increase in the zero-sum biases.
Did they try any other forms of intervention other than using other Bible verses?
Not that they...
They missed an opportunity here.
Mainline
you know why
Christians...
I'm asking?
Sorry?
You know why I'm asking? Because this would be a study that would basically be comparing reform versus abandoning religion.
Whoa!
If they did have that, wouldn't that be amazing if they were like doing two different groups of fundamentals, and with one of them were trying to use the Bible to see if they could make them more tolerant, and with the other one they were trying to maybe promote skepticism and Christianity itself to see if they would become more tolerant, and then they compared the two groups. That would be a study that would basically be comparing reform versus abandoning a religion. That would be amazing. I would be okay.
Wait, there are a few more highlights that I wanted to pull out. So, quote, mainline Christians, so these are the non-fundamentalists, or this is based on the way that they talk about them within this paper. Mainline Christians who read a Bible passage about non-judgment reported lower zero-sum biases, lower sexual prejudice, and greater support for same-sex marriage than those in a control condition. Therefore, Christian values can increase based on Study 1, where they presented them with the Bible passages that condemn, same-sex behavior, or decrease, which was Study 4, where they do this intervention. So Christian values can increase or decrease Christians' zero-sum biases. The specific role likely depends on whether values are seen as highlighting the perceived inconsistency or consistency between being a good Christian and accepting sexual minorities. This, and then Study 5 examined zero-sum biases in a community sample of specifically American United Methodists, and assessed changes over time in response to church legislation. So for background, the United Kingdom United Methodist Congregation approved legislation that they would actually bless same-sex marriages. So the United Kingdom Methodist community is becoming more progressive. Meanwhile, in the United States, our United Methodist community approved some form of legislation that more constrained the role that gay or lesbian people can play within the diocese. They don't use diocese. What's in church leadership. So they actually got a little more conservative. And so they were studying this specific population in America and how they reacted to the new legislation that was constraining people more. This pattern suggests that the United Methodist Church's vote to increase restrictions communicated the inconsistency between religious doctrine and LGBT individuals, and thus sanctioned bias against the latter for zero-sum endorsers. So they're saying that this move by the church validated the biases that their followers had. They were talking about how zero-sum biases predicted greater sexual prejudice and decreased support for same-sex marriage. For example, the legislation of same-sex marriage provided... Oh, and so they're saying that these results are consistent to what they find in the real world. And so they say, for example, the legislation of same-sex marriage federally in America provided new clientele and significant potential financial gains for the wedding industry, aka not an economic threat, not a so-called realistic threat. Nevertheless, the owner of the Masterpiece Cake Shop viewed this legislation as a symbolic threat that posed a danger to the owner's religious values, and this was used to justify service refusal. And they go on to have a section that's all saying, like, this was very smart of the authors, and they're saying, do these biases actually reflect the reality? And they say, it is important to note that although there has been significant social gains for sexual minorities, these do not likely correspond to increasing bias against Christians, despite some Christians' perceptions. So then they go into a reflection of the literature that says that there is not increasing bias against Christians. There isn't studies that validate these perceptions. So they're actually saying that these biases are not reflective of reality. And that is very important for researchers to investigate and pull apart. Like, how much are these biases actually justified, right? So they have a section dedicated to say, no, they're not justified. And then this was interesting to me. Perceptions of anti-Christian bias seems to be particularly acute for conservative Christians. The majority, 57% of white evangelicals, report that their group experiences a lot of discrimination in the United States today. And that was a finding from a paper in 2018. And then kind of in conclusion, they have a section titled, what are the functions of zero-sum biases? And they say, quote, if Christians do not appear to experience increasing objective bias against their group, what is the purpose of the zero-sum biases? As described above and articulated in the instrumental model of intergroup conflict, zero-sum biases likely arise to motivate efforts to maintain group dominance. Whereas dominance related to zero-sum biases has traditionally been conceptualized in relation to distribution of resources. For example, like I gave the example of immigrants and jobs. We argue and provide evidence that zero-sum biases also arise as an effort to exert cultural dominance. And why did Armin have to leave for the best part? Oh my God. They literally bring forth studies that say religiosity is a form of system justification, particularly for Christians. So a threat to Christianity might be taken as a threat to the system which Christians are motivated to defend. When Christians experience symbolic threat and are concerned about losing their group's historic dominance, zero-sum biases motivate them to reestablish the group's position. I thought it was so bold. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Just seen in an academic paper, the words religiosity is a form of system justification. I was like, oh, this is it. Oh my God. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. This is Bluetooth. So even if I go away, I'm still listening. So don't worry about that. Wait, so when you say it's an attack on the system, the title says it's a personal attack. Are there two different things that the study is mentioning? Like, do they see it as an attack on their values, as an attack on the system, or are they seeing it as a personal attack, or all three separately is being measured here?
A personal attack by way of group identity. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
That was my interpretation of this.
Okay. I don't understand. Explain this part to me, because they say they're not justified to have this fear. Are they really not justified? Because, like, for example, what it says in the article, it says many Christians have come to see themselves as being on the losing side of the cultural wars. I mean, they are. Thankfully so. Like, when they say that they see this as an attack on their values, and that's their fear, why does the study say that this is not a justified fear? It is a justified fear, but that we're on the winning side, and they're worried that they're on the losing side. I mean, they are, and that's a good thing. How is that not a justified fear?
To quote the study, sexual minorities continue to face disproportionate violence and discrimination. In 2018, LGBT individuals make up approximately 20% of all hate crime incidents, even though they make up only 4.5% of the population. And although same-sex marriage has been legal in the United States since 2015, a recent audit study revealed that same-sex couples continue to experience more discrimination from wedding industry professionals than heterosexual couples. Furthermore, only recently did the Supreme Court establish that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 applies to sexual orientation and sexual identity. Interestingly, and consistent with the present research, it seems that conservative Christians interpret the ruling as a loss for their group. Before June 15th, 2020, the June 15th, 2020 ruling, laws meant to prevent bias based on sex were selectively interpreted to only sometimes include sexual orientation and gender identity. Despite these, so basically they're saying there isn't evidence that they face discrimination. They don't face violent attacks. Yeah. But that's different than just culture war stuff. We're talking about demonstrable instances of violence and discrimination.
That's why I was asking if the fear is that. That's why before I said I don't know why they're not justified, I asked. My question was, are they? The title says many Christians perceive LGBT acceptance as a personal attack. So I wanted to understand what this means, what this personal attack means. Okay, because are they worried that their values are being defeated, or are they worried that they're being discriminated against? Okay, because is this study mentioning two different things? Okay, if they are terrified that they're going to be discriminated against, okay, that is an unjustified fear, right? That's irrational, and all the things that you mentioned show it's a good indication of why that's absolutely ridiculous to think, right? That's an irrational fear. But if the fear is that, oh my God, our values are being defeated, we're being humiliated, our way of life, our way of understanding the world is becoming less and less and less popular, right? If that is a fear, then that fear is completely justified. Yes, you are losing. Yes, we are coming from your values. Yes, we will defeat your religion. Yes, we will crush everything that you hold dear, right? Happily so. And you will be, your views are going to be seen as the biggest, you're going to be seen as the biggest that you are by more and more people. If that is the fear, that fear is justified. So that's why I was trying to separate what's the issue. Like, oh my God, gay people are being accepted. This is a personal attack on me. This is anti-Christian discrimination. That's like moronic and should be laughed at. But if the fear is my values are being defeated, that fear is justified. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, the way that it's measured within this study, it's not justified, because the essence of zero-sum bias is that if you gain, I lose. And that's where the sense of personal attack comes from. So,
right. So I think what I'm saying is when we say lose, okay, if by lose we mean that you are being discriminated against, right? That's unjustified, right? If the people's perception is gay people winning means I'm losing, right? Well, that's the zero-sum game that we talked about, and that's moronic, and the fears are unjustified, right? Because how do you, like, yeah, obviously, right? But if the fear is my values are being destroyed, that's a separate thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I think the zero-sum game in the value department is justified, right? If it is like, if we're just talking about attack on individuals, the zero-sum game doesn't make sense. Some people winning doesn't mean you're losing, right? Everybody could just be happy, right? Other people being happy and accepted doesn't take anything away from you. So in the world of discrimination and people's individual lives and happiness and tolerance, that doesn't make any sense. But in the world of values, right? If more people are believing in things that goes against your values, that is a zero-sum game, right? I mean, for example, if less people are Christian, if more people have unchristian values, that means that if more people are having values that is not accepted in Christianity, that means you're losing people who accept your values. Like, that is a zero-sum game, you know? If more people think like us, that means less people think like them. So in the world of values, it is a zero-sum game. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, I think you're kind of thinking about this differently than as it's conceptualized in like a strictly operationalizable psychological sense.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
When you're studying psychology, particularly social psychology, you have to operationalize your term in a very specific, strict way so that you can consistently measure and validate that you're measuring what you're trying to measure correctly, right? And you have to have a very specific lens in which you're doing so.
I just think the study is measuring, discrimination and, that first thing, not the second thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking the study is not measuring, because I'm thinking like if the game was like who has our values and who has less their values, that is not what the study is measuring, because that is a zero-sum game and they are rational to fear that they're on the losing side. Okay. But if the study is measuring the fact that, is it like, if the study is more focused on gay people's acceptance, does that make like Christian lives horrible? And are they being attacked if we accept, gay rights and all that? Then that's not a zero-sum game. And the fact that they're afraid of that is irrational. And I think that's what the study is focusing on. Right. So, yeah. Does that was that accurate, what I just said? Based on your understanding of the study?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking like, we're winning on the battle of values and they're losing, and that's a zero-sum game. And I'm glad that we're on the winning side of this. That's all I'm saying. Right. But yes.
Well, wait, I'm going to take that back. We're just going to go in circles.
Okay. So, that's a different thing. What I just said is different from what the study was measuring. By the way, I'm not negating the study.
Yeah. And I also just want to note that there actually are documented hate crimes that do happen against Christians, which I thought was interesting. They reference that in the study. But they do say, furthermore, an analysis of 40 years of attitudes toward conservative Christians based on the American National Election Studies survey provides no evidence of increasing negativity towards Christians over time. In fact, attitudes averaged from near neutral to positive for fundamentalist Christians. But this is very different from the attitudes towards Christians as people versus the relevance, dominance, and popularity of Christian values, which is what Armin is getting at.
Okay, cool. All right. Are we good to clap on can we clap for the next news?
Yeah.
Next news.
6 sentenced to death for murder of Bangladeshi gay rights activists.
Wait, why are we clapping for this?
Because there are people who were being brought to justice for them their violent crimes against LGBT activists.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
On April 25th, 2016, Bangladesh's top gay activist, Zulhaz Manam, was brutally murdered along with actor known by the name Rabbi Tanoi. Both victims were figureheads and pillars in Bangladesh's thriving LGBT nonprofit advocacy group and community known as Rupam. Manam and Tanoi were 35 years old and 25 years old at the time of their murder. They were instrumental in the creation of Rupam's magazine of the same title. Marcia Beringkat, the U.S. ambassador for Bangladesh at the time, condemned Manam's killing. Ansar al-Islam, a Bangladesh-based offshoot of Al-Qaeda, claimed responsibility for the murder and of other attacks targeting atheists and other secular activists. After more than half a decade passed, the special, can I say the T word?
Sure.
The Special Anti-Terrorism Tribunal has sentenced 6 men out of the 8 charged for Manam's and Tanoi's murder.
I'm glad that justice is, taking place. But the deaths, I don't want us to celebrate the death sentence. We're against capital punishment here, right?
Yeah. And that's actually something I thought was really interesting when doing research on this story, was that people who are figureheads of the Bangladeshi LGBT community nowadays, they were actually, they themselves were expressing like, I'm happy that, there is some form of justice for, our friends, but we ourselves are actually anti-death penalty activists. So we don't support that, and we fight against the death penalty, and we would have preferred a life sentence. But they were happy in the sense that these murders were being taken seriously. Does that make sense? That's kind of how I feel about it too.
Yeah, we could still be like, yay, justice, and boo, capital punishment. Like we could have a mixed feeling about this. It's okay to have mixed feelings about things, I guess, right? But yeah. Okay, I do want to highlight this in the live chat because I see this all the time. I see this so many times. Here so many times. People are saying, I normally don't support the death penalty, but guys, if you say I normally don't support the death penalty, but that means you do support the death penalty, okay? Because the death penalty, wherever it's there, it's for specific situations, okay? The death penalty is always not for every goddamn case. Death penalty has always been there for specific. So if you say I'm not for the death penalty, but you're one of the people who supports the death penalty. So don't say I don't support the death penalty, but you are Zakuru. You are a supporter of the death penalty. If you put but after that sentence, that means you're a supporter of death penalty. Okay, so yeah, just to clarify that. I'm not. I don't support the death penalty at all. And that's different. There's a difference, by the way, with the death penalty and killing people in war, right? Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be like. I'm not like 100 like anti any form of violence. Like, violence. There are certain situations where it's justified, especially during war and stuff like that. But yeah, death penalty doesn't make any sense, and it should be abolished everywhere on the planet. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I thought it was really interesting. So we have someone on our team who has a Bangladeshi background, and they were talking to me about this news, and they said that they actually used to like check out articles from this magazine in this community, Rupban, which apparently means handsome, which I love. And they were saying how it just takes such balls of steel and bravery to do anything regarding the LGBT community over there in Bangladesh, and how deeply rooted the homophobia is in their society. So it's these people, these activists were doing a great service for the Bangladeshi community at large, I feel. and their murders were just horrible. Like,
It was horrible.
I don't know what it is about like that period of time in Bangladesh, but everyone was just being like, it was just machetes like all over the place. Maybe just because it's more convenient to get to someone in the street that way. I don't know, but
it's such a bad way to go. I mean, all ways are a bad way to go, but like that was absolutely. It's such a slow death, and it's so goddamn painful. Like these people, these are some of the worst, people on the planet. But yeah, go on.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So, 2 out of the 6 people who were sentenced are actually still at large. So they were tried in absentia. And so they're still like on the run, basically. And one of them included a former Army major who is said to be responsible for organizing the series of murders. Which I hope
they're so stressed right now. I hope that they're living in a very, very unhappy, stressful situation right now, as they're like scared of getting arrested. Maybe. Yeah. Anyways, I shouldn't say much.
Well, I mean, they managed to be on the run for like a fairly long period of time, so I don't know how likely their actual capture is. And I mean, this was just the sentencing, so there are further legal processes that can occur to adjust their sentence. I'm assuming, I think Bangladesh is based off of British common law, which that's probably the case. I know in America, there's still further processes, but that's the update so far. And it's these series of murders was kind of a big turning point for a lot of the community, of the LGBT community, or particularly activists in Bangladesh, because they just really have to, it sets a precedent, right? And you have to fear for your safety in a very present and acute way than beforehand.
Yeah. Any of the secular act? Well, we don't know. I don't think that's a fair question because you haven't looked into it. But because there was a lot of secular and atheist activists that were also macheted, but they're like, I'm hoping that their murderers will also get justice. I don't know if they know.
Well, we actually covered a story several months ago about one of these Bangladeshi secular writers, and I'm so mad at myself I can't remember his name right now, but his murderers were actually sentenced to the death penalty as well. And we had, of course, a similar conversation about our contention over that at the time.
Of course we do. Anyways, anything in the live chat you want to highlight before we go to the next news?
I will take a look. Yeah, I don't know. People, if there's any but in regards to a statement, and then you just negated what became before the but. I see there's multiple instances of that in the chat. Yeah.
All right. Can we clap for the next news?
Yes, we can.
Next news.
Atheist author Greg Epstein elected as the chief chaplain of Harvard. Greg Epstein is the current and newly elected chief chaplain at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Epstein was able to identify with the growing number of students in Harvard who, quote, no longer identify with any religious tradition, but still experience real need for conversation and support. So he has been the humanist chaplain at Harvard for a long time, and now he's in charge of all of the chaplains. He has introduced many to the idea that an individual's relationship can be centered around one another as humans, as instead of centered around a deity. His election as the chief chaplain was unanimous. Epstein has also written for TechCrunch, one of the top publications in Silicon Valley, where he explored the ethical aspects of technologies and their adaptations across different industries. His book, Good Without God, What a Billion Non-Religious People Do Believe, published in 2010, continues to be a source of influence on the rising demographics of humanists and atheists across the country. So this was awesome. Congratulations to Greg Epstein. And what I thought what was so interesting is this is kind of like an administrative position. So he reports, I believe, directly to the president of the university. But it was the other humanists, and there are around 40 other chaplains, and they were responsible for electing him. So it was actually, I presumably all theists, the rest of them, who unanimously voted for him to become their chief chaplain and administrative leader.
So are you telling me that this is an atheist takeover of all the available options in Harvard?
Well,
like are you saying that we went from having a chaplain for every person and then one for atheists, just so that they haven't, for people who don't have a religion, to have an option, to the atheist person that is in charge of the humanist chaplain to just take over every single other ones, and now everyone has to go to the atheist for their spiritual needs, or whatever they call it?
No.
Okay.
So he's not taking anyone's job, right? He does not dictate when any like the beliefs or the practices of the other chaplains, right? He's not taking over their jobs or anything like that. It's an administrative position. So he has kind of the highest position of authority on an administrative kind of bureaucratic level of all the other chaplains. But he doesn't interfere with their personal beliefs or their ministry in that kind of capacity, except potentially in case if there was like any sort of violation, I would imagine, but from an administrative capacity, not from.
And this was a unanimous
atheist.
This was a unanimous decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm assuming that we have Islamic ones and Christian ones and Hindu
Baha'is, Hindus.
Baha'i. Okay. And they all said, like, they all agreed that, put the atheists in charge. Wow. Okay. I mean, this is Harvard, so anything like this is not representative of other people with these beliefs outside of Harvard, but still pretty amazing. Pretty like,
I thought it was so interesting because this was kind of announced during this big major profile in the New York Times. So that's a big deal. And the title was something along the lines of like Harvard's new chief chaplain, like it's an atheist or something. And this was funny because I had like at least 3 separate members of my extended family send me that article. He's like, Susanna, look.
Really?
Yeah. But if you guys have access, I would go read that profile in the New York Times. It was really sweet. It talks about his colleagues commending him for having a unique ability to have interfaith dialogue and facilitate interfaith dialogue to help students who were called in the article religious refugees. So there's one woman who talks about she grew up in like an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic community, and all that she could ever dream of being as a child was a bride, because that was the only thing that they could think of. And in secret, she applied to Harvard, and then she had to leave her family to attend Harvard. And she was struggling with her experiences and not having someone to talk to. And she became friends with and could relate to Greg Epstein. And then she talks about how her mom was asking her to look at the university's like school yearbook. And she was like, I don't think you would like it because it shows me as like the president of Harvard's humanist, atheist, and agnostics group. Like, so she became even like the leader of that student group. And she's like, and it shows my shoulders. And it's funny because one of the other people that they interviewed in the article was the chaplain for the Christian Scientists. And that woman was talking about how, a lot of people might be looking at this and think, what the heck is Harvard doing? But they're saying based on their community and how Greg fits into the community, he was just such a good fit and was unanimously voted upon by the other chaplains who were part of the board in this election. And one thing I didn't know was that Harvard was actually founded because in colonial America, they wanted to ensure that the clergy would be literate. So Harvard was actually founded to educate clergymen, to make sure that there was literacy among the religious leaders. And I was like, look at us now. We have an...
This is what education gets you. Okay, so I have a question. What is the purpose of the chaplains? What's the function?
So a chaplain in a university setting is just kind of to provide spiritual or emotional guidance to students. Often it's kind of mentorship.
What did they define as spiritual?
Well, I mean, yeah. They expanded to the point that now, I mean, when I think of chaplain, I think of someone strictly in a religious capacity, but they've expanded it to now include even atheists. Just there, and he provides people with the unique opportunity to talk about them falling away from religion or more organized religious background, because there's still a lot of people who are like kind of vaguely spiritual. But he has the potential to relate and validate the feelings of those students, perhaps more than other chaplains could.
So we are basically, at least in this environment, not in other places, we have the head of the religious leaders of every single community in Harvard has basically, we have them acknowledging that the best, that a person that has written a book called Good Without God, like he's not like one of those people that is an atheist, but is like shy away from his atheism.
No, he's a self-proclaimed atheist.
He doesn't hide his atheism. He has a book that Without God is in the title, right? It is like so telling people that atheism is promoting atheism, you could say. So I'm just trying to acknowledge the progress that we have here, right? I'm basically congratulating these religious leaders. We have these religious leaders acknowledging that somebody that is not just an atheist, but an atheist activist that is actually encouraging atheism is fit to be in charge of providing people with what they deem to be, quote unquote, like spiritual needs or moral guide, or sense of significance, or sense of like some emotional comfort. They think like some atheists have the capacity to provide that guide to people, right? And this is them unanimously voting for putting this person in charge, is them, in my view at least, them accepting this, right? Do you see it that way?
Yeah. Okay. There are lots of. He's even the humanist chaplain for MIT as well. Right.
And the reason why this is so significant to me is because a lot of people think atheist activism is just about encouraging more people to become atheists, right? But I think the bigger part of what I think should be the main focus of atheist activism, I think like encouraging people to leave their religion is secondary, in what I consider to be secondary in atheist activism. I think the primary role of atheist activism is to normalize atheism and to make more people just accept atheism as part of society, accept atheists, tolerate atheists, don't see them as less of, just accept atheists as, same as everybody else in society, right? Because that's such a easier win and shorter term goal that we could have beyond just like encouraging people to leave superstition, right? I'm not saying that we should abandon our attempt to show people that their religion is bull crap, right? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. We should still do that. But I'm saying this encouraging people who will remain religious, who will not abandon their religion, to just accept atheists and not see them as less, that is our primary goal. And I think like stories like this, even though this is anecdotal, even though this is like an environment where people are a lot more educated and tolerance is a lot more encouraged and people are a lot more wiser, this is not an indication of what's happening. And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's not happening, but this is not a story to show that. It's still a morale boost for us to see, like, you know, it's possible. It's happening. It could be happening. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I see it. And I think people should celebrate religious people who do accept atheists, right? Just because you think that their views are moronic, which they are, doesn't mean that we can't celebrate these people and encourage this kind of behavior. Okay, just remember that saying somebody has moronic views is not an attack on them, because we all have moronic views. There's not as, I mean, there are very few people on this planet that don't have any moronic views, and I would say I'm probably not one of them, right?
Oh,
like,
definitely me.
Yeah, everybody, we are, like, the vast majority of us have certain views that are absolutely moronic, that we don't recognize that they're moronic. So me telling religious people that their religion is moronic and they have moronic views, they shouldn't take this as a personal attack, because it's not a crime to have moronic beliefs. Okay?
What I thought was really interesting, and I encourage you guys to follow Greg Epstein on Twitter. I don't know him, but he seems like a really sweet guy. A lot of his work and his approach to his work is centered around, like, how to be better humans to one another. So, like I said, centering relationships with each other instead of centering a relationship with God, which I think is really powerful and an interesting way of reframing the way that a lot of people think about how, you know, we interact within society. And yeah, so wait, no, I had one more hilarious thing to share before we move to the next news. So in the descriptions, can you see the link that I wanted to show?
Oh, wait, hold on.
This is so good.
Wait, in the descriptions or in the Google Notes? I'm not seeing it.
In the description part of the Google Notes.
Oh yeah, I see. It's redirecting me. It's saying a redirect notice. It's taking me to Facebook.
Yes.
All right, hold on. Let me bring it.
Okay. So I saw this after we published this on our website, and I had to talk about it today because it's so funny to me. So after this was announced, you know, there were a lot of reactions of it, and this was posted by the Catholic News Agency. Bishop Barron questions election of atheist as Harvard chaplain president. And then this quote: "If a professed atheist counts as a chaplain, then religion quite obviously has come to mean nothing at all."
Well,
I
sent
this as a screenshot to our team, and I was like, good, we're winning.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's actually true, though. I mean, I wish this was true, but I think, like, this is a chaplain would add religion. So I don't think, like, they're saying this atheist person is religious or this atheist person is providing religion. I think what they're suggesting is that this is a religion-less chaplain, like at least the humanist version. That's what they're saying.
Well, then he continues. Bishop Robert Barron said on Tuesday that the Harvard University chaplains have made a, quote, complete and abject surrender by electing an atheist as the president of their association. What does bother me, Barron wrote in an August 31st op-ed for the New York Post, is the complete and abject surrender on the part of the presumably religious leaders at Harvard who chose this man. Presumably religious. If a professed atheist counts as a chaplain, which is to say a leader of religious services in a chapel, then religion quite obviously has come to mean nothing at all. So basically at that point, they clarified with the administration that about his role. And so they said, yeah, his role as a chaplain facilitator is administrative, and it has no effect on its ministry at Harvard. Because like the bishop said, traditionally the word chaplain means someone who is the leader of religious services in a chapel. So they're like, what the heck does that even mean to have a humanist atheist chaplain? And they're like, well, it's at this point, it's not a literal chapel. It's more of just a title.
Read this one.
Secular Rarity saying, we accept your surrender, religious leader.
Yeah, and we're coming for the Catholic Church next. You're on our list. You're on our list. We're coming for you.
Yeah, but just to clarify for everyone,
atheist
this is a quote.
Pope one day in history, the first atheist Pope.
That'd be so cool. But just to clarify for everyone, this is a quote from the CNA article. Epstein will also convene all the university chaplains when they have matters to discuss, he said, and thus will be, quote, representing the entire group, but he's not representing his own opinions. So that kind of speaks to Armin's question in the beginning of the segment.
By the way, I want to tell everybody that all this Epstein talk is probably going to make this video not get recommended. So please and share this video. Like, make sure you like. I know this has nothing to do with that Epstein, but given that we're saying Epstein so much, this is probably going to hurt this video. So please like the video, help this, help us reach more people. Okay. I did, by the way, before we go to, was that the last thing? Should I say something?
Well, the last news is Atheist Republic news.
I know. Before we go to the last news, there's something about one of the news that I had in my notes to mention, and I wanted to mention it, and I forgot. Should I leave that for another day, or can I mention it right now?
What story was it?
Okay, about the study, about the scripture, like the influence of using scripture.
So as an intervention on Christians.
As an intervention,
yeah.
So because this part might get cut separately, I just want to summarize what that study suggested, and you could let me know if I'm getting it wrong. The study that we reviewed was suggesting that you could use certain Bible verses that are loving and seem to be tolerant as a way to influence fundamental Christians to become more accepting, more tolerant of LGBT people, right? And that has a positive influence on them to make them more accepting. And there's also certain Bible verses that could be used as a way to make them less tolerant. And if you focus on those Bible verses, it has an influence on making them less tolerant and more anti-LGBT, right? Is that a fair description of what you think the study shows?
Well, it's surrounding the specific type of biases. It could either increase this type of biases or decrease it, depending on what they were primed with, what type of scripture they were primed with.
Depending on the type of scripture they were being primed, so it depended on the scripture. By the way, for people who might see this video and not see that, what should they search for to be able to find that study? Because I'm not.
We titled our segment "New Study Shows Many Christians Perceive LGBT Acceptance as Personal Attack."
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the title because that's a different part of the study. I'm talking about this specific part of the title. Anyways, because we will link to it. If this part gets cut, I'll just make our editor to link to that article where you could find the study in the description of this part. Okay. So what I asked when you mentioned that, I asked you if there was also a measurement of other methods of intervention to try to other than using Bible. Was there anything in the study that tried to use non-biblical ways to see, maybe promoting skepticism on Christianity as a whole, as a way to see what the influence on that would be on maybe Christian fundamentals, to see if they would be more accepting of gay rights or not, right? And we said that there wasn't, right? And the reason why I asked that is because I am somebody that wants to see the different tactics on, for example, reforming religion versus encouraging people to abandon religion. Which ones are the best way to encourage better values and standards in society? Because I'm on the side of don't reform religion, just encourage people to either abandon religion or become more skeptical of it. I think you get a lot more return on your investment if you do that. Okay. And so that study does not exist. It would be very interesting to show that. And then let's say, for example, if you promote skepticism and then you focus on certain Bible verses that shows that encourages people to become more tolerant or more accepting, And there's also a study that shows that we have right now, as you mentioned, that shows focusing on some certain other Bible verses will make people less tolerant. So people may be like, okay, if promoting skepticism or abandoning religion works, and focusing on certain Bible verses also works, then why not do both? Okay, and I want to address that, right? Like, let's say both of these work. The problem is that the same study shows that there are Bible verses that, the study confirmed that there's certain Bible verses that discourages tolerance if you focus on that. So my problem is that when you use the Bible, okay, if we have alternative methods that work, then we shouldn't be using the Bible as a way to encourage better behavior, right? Even if it works, because what you're doing is that you're giving authority and legitimacy to a tool. Like the Bible comes with those verses that has that negative effect, right? So this is a weapon that you could use for good and for evil, and it's harmful, right? The Bible itself legitimizing it and considering a source of authority, right? Then you're putting a tool in people's hands that could be used to encourage, intolerance or hatred towards an entire group of people. I just think, given that legitimizing this as a source of authority and a sort of moral guide by itself is faulty, and given that those Bible verses that you could use to encourage hatred towards a group of people is inside the same book, then you shouldn't be using method, even if highlighting certain verses in the Bible has some positive effect. The side effect to that is that you're giving authority and legitimacy to this book that includes those other Bible verses. So I'm saying that if you use other methods that does not require you to put this book on a pedestal or make it seem like it's a good way to come up with a guide, then even if you find positive verses, you shouldn't be using them, because we have better methods that will not involve you legitimizing those other Bible verses that does encourage hatred. Does that make sense what I'm saying here?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it gets at a central epistemological flaw where,
right,
essentially, to a certain extent, you are using faith as your tool. And as the study showed, well, it's not specifically faith, it's like what verses you rely on, but it's your faith that gives it a source of authority is what I'm getting at. And that's kind of outside the purview of the specific study we were looking at. But the faith is the issue, because it can lead you to bad conclusions. It's not consistent in leading you to a consistent conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, you're just using a faulty methodology and trying to encourage people to get to the good conclusion. That by itself is a problem. That fundamentally by itself is like you're using bad premises, and you're founding your arguments on premises that are inaccurate and not based on reality, and you're hoping that you could direct people to get into good conclusions, right? The best way to get the way to you get from faulty premises to a good conclusion is by using flawed logic. Instead of trying to do that, just attack the entire thing, like unroot the whole thing. This is rotten to the core, basically, right? Mm-hmm. This is not a good way to come up with good conclusions. Start with your foundation should be based on a methodology that is based on reality and based on evidence and based on our modern understanding of how the brain operates and how operating of the society is the most productive. If that's your foundation, then you don't have to try to use these gymnastic arguments and focusing on certain verses rather than other verses to try to get people to certain conclusions. You will automatically start encourage people to get to better conclusions if your foundations are good and you're also promoting critical thinking and logical thinking. In fact, if your foundations are weak, if your premises are faulty, you would actually have to promote flawed logic to be able to get to good conclusions. And as usual is saying in the live chat, using the Bible to accept LGBT is as futile as Muslim reform. Yeah, I very much agree with that.
Well, I would say Islamic reform, not Muslim reform.
Yeah, Islamic reform. Yeah, actually, you're right. You can't reform Islam, but you can reform Muslims by encouraging them to move away from Islam. All right. So, can we...
hopefully our editor will just cut that and put it onto the first segment where we talked about this.
Great idea. Maybe just let her know. Can we clap for the next news?
You know we can.
Next news.
Next news, Atheist Republic's blasphemy battle featured in German humanist publication. Yay!
Wow.
So
I can recognize this part of the title. But go on.
On August 30th, the large German humanist publication, and I'm going to butcher this German, Humanister, I want to say Presidente, but it's Presidischt. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Wait, I'm not the president. You're the president.
No.
Oh, okay, go on.
That's the name of the publication.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Humanistischer President. I'm sorry.
I thought you were saying president. Yeah.
That's the name. Oh my God.
Yes, I get it now. I said I thought.
Okay. Anyways, they published an article detailing Atheist Republic's blasphemy over battle with the Indian government and our blocking and the legal complaints and even our issues at YouTube. And it kind of gives a good summary of what we've been dealing with since the Sexy Cali affair and our subsequent blasphemous art project. We also detailed the Armin's personal page, the unprecedented step of his personal page now being blocked in India, despite him not, being a foreign citizen, and Facebook completely complying with this. So yeah, check it out, you guys. The link is in the description, and there is, if you're on Google Chrome, I'm assuming other internet explorers do this as well. Just translate into English. The auto translation into English is decent.
Really?
It's not the best, but it communicates the point.
Right.
And I'm just saying that because the translation of the statement that I gave to them is not the same in English as what I actually said to them. So there is some discrepancy.
But you get the gist.
But you get the gist. Yeah.
Right. The title seems to be translated very well. By order of the government. So the title says, by order of the government, Atheist Republic and founder Armin Navabi are blocking. Oh, okay. So are blocked. Social networks are blocking. Hey, this translation makes it seem like I'm blocking somebody. I'm not blocking anybody.
So there is some confusion. There is some stuff lost in translation. I will be clear. But
are blocking social networks from India. Wow, the title makes me seem so powerful. The title makes it seem like I am blocking all of social media from India. Anything social, all Indian social media are being blocked by me from India and the rest of the planet.
It was funny saying Armin exposed.
Oh no. Okay, okay. Actually, I kind of like the translation. I feel like wow, India. If you behave properly, I'll let you. I'll unblock your social media. But okay, no. So
that the rarity is saying, "Damn it, Armin, let India have their social networks."
This is good. By the order of government. Okay, cool. So let's see what it's showing. I see some screenshots. Oh yeah, so for people who are not in the know, our Facebook page was blocked in India. By the way, when your Facebook page gets blocked in a country, this is Facebook admitting that you didn't do anything wrong, okay? Because if you actually did something wrong, they would just remove your page, right? So when they remove you in a specific country, it means okay, you didn't violate our community standards, but the government of this country is forcing us not to let people in their country see our social media, right? So right now we've been blocked in our Atheist Republic Facebook page has been blocked in Pakistan and now India. Okay, so again, if you need more examples of why India is becoming more and more like Pakistan, those are the only two countries where Atheist Republic's Facebook page has been completely blocked, Pakistan and India. However, India went farther than Pakistan because Pakistan didn't come after my personal Facebook account, okay? India, specifically, the Indian government specifically asked Facebook to also block my personal Facebook account in India. I have never heard of anyone else's personal Facebook account to be blocked in an entire country. Again, my Facebook account is still there. I haven't received any strikes. So this is Facebook like admitting that there's no violations on my Facebook account. It's just blocked in India. Like if you're from India and you go to my Facebook page, you see that my page is not there. But other people from other countries, unless you use a VPN, by the way, people from other, actually, I don't know if that works. People from other countries could see my Facebook account, right? Again, Pakistan didn't do this. Pakistan just banned our Facebook page in Pakistan. India's government was so butthurt about me. Like they find me so offensive that my individual personal account has been blocked in India. Has this happened? Like I might be the first person. I might be the first, not page, personal account that has been blocked in an entire country.
Yeah, and a foreign citizen. Facebook is complying in the government of India taking action against you, a non-Indian national.
Yeah, and guys, let me just, for people who might not know this or have forgotten about this, this has all been about a picture of a goddess.
Cartoons!
This was about cartoons. This was about the drawing. All of this, and I don't know if other people know, I don't know if this is in the article, our case was mentioned in the Supreme Court of India. Is this mentioned in this article?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
All of this was over a cartoon, which, by the way, yesterday was the 1 year anniversary.
Snap.
Actually, this is so fitting that we're covering this right now, okay? Because we made art. Can I show that? Yeah.
Yes.
Show it. Okay. So if you go to Blasphemous, so this, safe for work version. So today is the 1 year anniversary of our Sexy Callie, right?
Well, so not today, yesterday.
Yesterday.
Close enough.
So us drawing Sexy Callie, which is like a Hindu goddess, what started all of this? Like this whole the government of India coming after us, after all our social media, removing me and Susanna from Twitter, by the way, and coming after us on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, going after my family, trying to come up with like things that I can't even say here.
Sexual harassment
of our, not just me, but my family, children in my family. All of this over us depicting a Hindu goddess in the most beautiful way possible. Like this, like I was expecting a thank you, to be honest, right? Right? This was a celebration of Hindu culture, which happened almost exactly 1 year ago. So it's so fitting that we're covering all of this because it's the anniversary, and you guys should go to Blasphemous Art. By the way, if you go to blasphemousart.com, you can see that we have so much more blasphemous art, because after we started, thanks to the reaction that we got from India, we decided to make this a thing, right? So Callie started all of this. Mother Callie started all of this, and now it's becoming its own thing into so many other, like Muhammad and Rama we have here. We have Israel and Palestinian in Jerusalem. It's so many. There's 14 pages of this blasphemous art. So go check them out on blasphemousart.com. And this is Sexy Callie celebrating. So we have a cake here. It's the 1 year anniversary.
Happy birthday, Callie.
Happy birthday, Blasphemous Callie. Sexy Callie's 1 year anniversary, right? Yeah. And if you guys want to see the uncensored version of it, you could click on the view uncensored version button right there. It will take you to see the uncensored. And again, all of this is available on blasphemousart.com, link in the description, or you could just search for blasphemousart.com and you will get there, right? Anyways, and guys, we have new blasphemous art every single week, almost like twice a week now. So you're welcome. You're welcome, India. I know, by the way, this is not a joke. Like, I'm not saying you're welcome, India, as a joke. There are, let me actually give credit to a lot of people from India. There are many people in India who very much appreciate our art. They are, I'm like, this is not like me, like just trying to troll and like, you're welcome, but actually being like, trying to poke. Like, no, there are many people in India. We have a lot of fans from India that can't wait for our art every single week. So yeah, so you're welcome. We actually, guys, can I be real? We improved sexy cat. We improved Kali. Okay, we did improve Kali. Like, no depictions of Kali in the past. How many years has it been for Kali in Hindu culture? I don't know, thousands of years,
Hundreds,
right?
possibly
Yeah.
thousands of years.
Yeah, no depiction of Kali has ever been as good as what we have made Kali to be. Okay, and and a lot of Hindus tell us that this is not your goddess. You don't have a right to do this. No, Kali belongs to the world. You don't have intellectual property rights on a goddess, right? Show me the filings if you do, right? If you did, you would have filed like a trademark violation or something by now. You don't. Okay, this is ancient culture, is public property. Your Kali belongs to everybody. You have no ownership over it. And culture is something that is dynamic and organic and changing, and it gets influenced by outside sources. And we took your culture, we improved it, and we're now sending it back to India. And you're welcome for improving your culture. Okay? We took your ancient culture, we modernized it, we made it better, and we expect nothing but thanks from you. But go on.
Can you bring us back to the article?
Oh yeah, hold on.
So I want to say thank you to Adrian at the German humanist publication that I cannot pronounce for reaching out to me about
HPD.
this story.
HPD.
Yeah,
HPD.
HPD. For reaching out to me for details about this story. I thought it was really funny because one of the comments on the bottom of this article basically says, you can also bring wisdom to the people more directly. Like, for example, quote, atheists believe all those gods were made up by other people a long time ago. Such a sentence makes everyone think, and it's free of racism and does not offend anyone among the living. I was like, did you not read the article at all? Wow. It's so funny that people still think this is a racist thing. But if it's okay, I would actually
racist against what people? Blue people? Oh, go
on.
Blue lives matter. I think that. Yeah, go on.
Oh my god. Can I read the statement that I gave them, but in English, because the translation?
I just want to highlight.
I just want to
highlight the people who think this is racist. They're assuming that gods are a different. Not only they're not the same ethnicity as Hindu people. They're a different species. How could this be racist? First of all, we're not attacking your gods. We're celebrating them. And even if we were attacking them, they're not the same ethnicity. Like, what do you think you're like this? People who think that this is an attack on their ethnicity, do you think you have divine blood or something? Like, maybe do you think you're a god?
No, I think people think it's racist against Indians.
I know.
Like, we're making fun of their culture in a racist way.
We're improving it. I also do want to highlight this misunderstanding here in the live chat. Okay, Zakuru is saying, frankly speaking, Kali isn't even a Hindu deity. She's a Bengali village deity. This is greater in Bengal. This is greater India. Okay, modern India is not the same as greater India. Okay, technically anything that comes from the greater India is ancient. Greater India is Hindu culture. So yeah, I mean, it's not, you could say maybe it's different part of greater India, but that's still greater India, right? Yes. But yes, let's give credit. Let's give credit where it's due. Kali is Bengali, and that's why often, I don't know if we did it this time, when we put her name next to, when we mention her name, we don't use Sanskrit. Oh, I don't know if we did it this time, but usually when we put the name of Kali in the art next to her, we use the Bengali script rather than the Sanskrit name because we recognize that she's Bengali. Did we put the name? We should always have the name there. Oh, I think we forgot to put her name on this last one. Anyways, okay. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to read the statement that I gave, but in English, because the Google Translate
where is it?
Isn't like accurate.
Where is it? But yeah, go on, read it.
Bottom.
Oh yeah.
Well, read what I originally wrote. So they asked me like for something about this matter that they could publish. And I said, I believe that engaging in blasphemy is far more than simply a valid form of protest. I find blaspheming to be a personal moral imperative. Blasphemy sparks conversation and a deeper reflection on cultural taboos, and it provides a unique opportunity to educate people on how the freedom to offend is invaluable. The organized efforts to harass us, either personally or judicially, will not dissuade Atheist Republic from our efforts to dissent from religious traditionalism wherever we find it across the globe. We will continue to blaspheme in solidarity with all those who fight for free expression, particularly our fellow atheists who do not enjoy the freedoms that we are privileged enough to possess here in North America.
That was fantastic. That was perfectly said. This is why you're the president and not me. Yeah, that was very well written. Great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Guys, look at this. Look at these statements. This is why we need a president.
Yeah, no, I wanted to give like what I originally wrote because the translation like says the freedom to cross borders and stuff when what I said was, challenging taboos, it's probably more accurate in German, but from English to German to English, it didn't sound right. So.
Right. AJ is saying like this latest version, we forgot to add the Bengali name. We will go and fix that. The other ones that has Kali has the Bengali name there. Like we have a lot of Kali blasphemous art. So thank you for that report, AJ. But yeah, guys, go. I mean, the link to this article is in the description if you want to share it. We're not, by the way, we're not done with this. Like we are going to like for the next couple of decades, we're going to use this event that all of this happened as a way to show the nature of blasphemy and blasphemy laws in India. This will always become a case study, and I don't know if people understand this, that this HPD is like a very authoritative.
It's possibly the largest German humanist publication.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's also one thing that people. This is a publication that people recognize as, a place where it does its research and is like, authoritative and legitimate place of getting information. And we're finding more and more places to make sure that we document this, right? So I don't know if people who like attacked us like this realize how much this is going to backfire on them. Like this is the way that they're portraying their values and, current Indian culture. Again, I don't want to portray all Indians the same because there's a lot of resistance to this, and a lot of people in India are actively fighting against these values taking over India, which is like, and we're very grateful for them, right? But these things demonstrates what we're dealing with and what is India dealing with, right? And we're going to continue turning this into a case study whenever we're discussing blasphemy. Like a lot of times when we talk about blasphemy laws and the issue with religion, attacking people's rights, people on a global scale, people just mostly think about Islam, and we just want to make sure what's happening in India doesn't get ignored. And our case is going to be used constantly for bringing attention to this, right? And again, a lot of people think that this was just an event that happened and went away, but they don't understand that this will be constantly referred to, and we're going to make sure it gets constantly referred to as something that should be referred to and studied and analyzed. So we're going to keep using this as a way to discuss blasphemy. And also this whole understanding by many atheists that maybe Hinduism was different or milder or peaceful or not anti-blasphemy, that has been decades worth of PR of whitewashing Hinduism in Western countries was like went down the drain in less than a month. Like I don't know how if people who attacked us understand how big of an L this was for Hinduism. Like this was like a major like they basically I don't understand, like so much resources and money of propaganda and marketing of Hinduism and Indian culture, they managed to wash that away over weeks. and it will continue to do so. Like within the atheist community and the humanist community, this event became something that was an eye opener. So thank you, by the way, to all the people that helped us make more people understand how backwards this Hindu culture and
high profile and well respected ex-Muslim activists and public figures who are like, we've never experienced anything like what we experienced because of the Hindu nationalists. Like, and we should never forget that, you know, even from our most like vitriolic and abusive, like, you know, Islamists, like, you know, haters. It's nothing in comparison. And I've even had people who, you know, like Atheist Republic and support our work, but they're believing Hindus. And they said this whole affair, one, it made them learn about us and support us because they don't like this type of behavior. And it actually made them reflect upon that they're glad that they are a Hindu outside of India.
Yeah. It also made atheism trend for the first time in India.
True.
A lot of people became introduced to atheism and us through this. And by the way, like blocking our Facebook page in India is not going to stop us. Oh, but in that note, subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description, because we have given that how much India and Pakistan. By the way, congratulations again to India for becoming more like Pakistan every single day. But for people like, we're making more governments angry. Like we got the Pakistani government hate us, and the Malaysian government, we have a history with them as well. And now the Indian government, like I don't know which is going to be the next government that is going to come after us. Like look at us, it's just like we're just like me and Susie and
we're so popular.
like we're like governments are like finding us intimidating, and we're just drawing cartoons and doing streams, right? And people are like, oh my God, we are a threat. By the way, I so sad that a lot of our staff, we can't mention who they are. Like our artist, she's amazing. Our video editor, our writers. But it's not just me and Suze, there are other people. And thanks to the patrons who are helping us pay them, right? Link to our Patreon is in the description if you want to support us on Patreon. And also, if you want to get all the blasphemous art every time we make them for free to send to you, subscribe to our newsletter. The newsletter is the best way to make sure that no matter where we get removed, if we lose our YouTube channel, if we lose our Facebook page, or if we get blocked in a certain area, we will still have access to you if you are on our newsletter. And if that's not reason enough for you to subscribe, you get the blasphemous art every single week that we make them, right? So every single week we have new blasphemous art, and the way to get the safe for work version of it for free, which is also glorious, like it's still clothed and everything. It doesn't have that censored thing on top of it, but it's beautiful. So if you want to get that, make sure you subscribe, and we'll send them to you every time we make a new one. Link in the description. And also like our videos and stuff, and share. So just like the video right now as you're watching, because that helps us as well.
Right. I have also a fun announcement before we leave.
All right.
In 2 days, I'm going to be doing a live stream with Abdullah Samir.
Oh, yes. Guys, go check out the channel. And
so if you go to the Friendly Ex-Muslim channel, you will see that there is a stream upcoming. I just put a link in. And I'm very excited. I'm going to be talking to Abdullah about religious sexual shame and difficulties with that, overcoming it, people's experiences. And I think it'll be interesting to talk to him about me coming from a Catholic background, maybe how that's different than from that of an Islamic background. I'm really excited. And thank you, Armin, for the topic suggestion.
Yes. I must say, like, okay, so he doesn't put his upcoming streams on his homepage, so it's hard to find. I know the link is in the live chat, but for people who want to find this later, so his channel is the Friendly Ex-Muslim. So go there and support, like hang out with Susan and show her support in the live chat when she's doing this. But because he doesn't put it in his homepage, it's sometimes hard to find. I'm gonna link to this right after the stream in Atheist Republic's community tab. So if you're not listening to this later and you can't find the link, go to Atheist Republic's YouTube page's community tab, and I'll make sure I link to the stream over there. Also, one thing I didn't do that I now regret is, like, last time I was doing a stream, a lot of the people from our community showed up, and I forgot to acknowledge them. Like, I usually, like, Music Guy was there, and I think some other people, like Secular Rarity, I think, was there. And usually I would like, hey, I see my people in the live chat. Hi guys, hi Music Guy, and we're like, but I didn't do that. I was like, I feel so guilty for not doing that. Okay, so guys. And next time when I'm doing a stream on another channel and as a guest, if you're there, I'll try to remember to, when I see you, to give a shout out or something like that. Okay, so sorry about that. Anyways, do you have anything else to say, or should we go?
I also have, I'm doing a lot of interviews this weekend. So I have another one, but it's not live. It'll be released later. And so you guys will hear about it in the coming weeks. And I'm excited because they've been trying to get a hold of me for like 6 to 9 months.
Right.
I'm busy. Oh, Gossam is saying, thanks to Susie for her great efforts, and thanks to Armin for his presence and useful takes.
Ah, thank you.
That's very
You know why he's saying that? Because he knows I didn't do, because you did all the work for the news. He's like, thank you to Sus for the great efforts, and also for Armin for talking.
For his presence.
For his presence. I guess it's good that he showed up,
really
Armin.
be like that.
I guess it's good that he shows up and talks, while Sus does all the work.
Reacts. Spends all day researching.
All right, okay. I see what you did, Qasim. Okay. I hate you guys. You know what? I'll ban every single one of you. Okay, cool. All right, let's go before I start banning people. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.